Welcome to the Yahowah blog. This is our family hour. We're coming to you from our library studio and from many other places around the country. We have Kevin and in the middle of the painting that Sylvia painted just this past week. That's a beautiful setting. You look great, very content in the lagoon. Was that lagoon reflections? Wasn't that it? Yeah, it matches your palette.
Resilience Lagoon, yeah.
Resilient, yes. Marketing Kirk's wife. I think that's a noble thing to do it. Kirk, you seem to be okay with that. So
you have a way with words, sir.
And Kirk's still under the weather, but it looks like the gabapentin is working pretty well for you. We had a little talk before the show. Kirk, to manage pain, has been given gabapentin because it's a non-narcotic and it has the least negative effects. And I say, so he and my beautiful yellow lab Asher are
on the same drug.
Are both on the same drug. Asher loves it, man. She says, "Say yes to drugs."
She does.
Oh man, does it ever give her a lighter step? And we have Dr. Jeff. You're at home, but with a different backdrop. Is that correct, or is that not home? Where is that?
That is correct. We're at home in a different backdrop to try and cut out some of the excess noise and interference.
So further from the kitchen is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, good to see you, Jeff. And we have Leah and Cara over here. Has Cara got her purse? It looks like
it's her champagne box.
It's
Friday. She's really into Bouffe Clicquot.
So she's going to celebrate for the weekend.
Yes, she's a party animal.
Leah, Asher does gabapentin. Leah does Cara does champagne. And well, we know what the Wookiee does. He's hooked on cappuccino. He has had his cappuccino already this evening, so he's all set to go. And over there, Rich, how's the King of the Cables doing this evening?
Doing good.
All right. Rich is
good show this afternoon.
Tomorrow morning he gets to move into his new digs. He's got a multi-level condo overlooking Buck Island and the beautiful Caribbean Sea. And it's all lined up. Yeah, he
no longer homeless.
He's no longer. They haven't been homeless, pal. This
this is homelessness.
Intermediate period.
I'm kind of spoiled.
Wait a minute.
Kind of spoiled. Yes.
Yahweh's children are never homeless.
Yeah, and this particular home is a pretty nice galley and kitchen setup. So here we go. Well, today was really an amazing day. We did the blog on the blog, and the main topic was how astounding it could be that in a week where the President of the United States says, I don't need to pay attention to Congress or international law or any of those things. I'm only limited by my morality and my mind.
Mm-hmm. Which is none.
The only restraint.
Which is none.
If you're studying Christian eschatology, which of course is not true, but nonetheless, in Christian eschatology, they have this concept of the Antichrist having a one world government. And so can you please tell me what would the difference be between what the Donald just said and what is opined for the Antichrist?
Same thing. Yeah, nothing.
Isn't the Antichrist supposed to model Satan's characteristics and be egomaniacal, sexually perverted,
yes,
murderous and a warmonger?
Check.
Exceedingly deceitful.
Check.
Would any of those be any different with Donald Trump? No. Okay. So after he says,
can we just start calling him Der Fuhrer, please?
Yeah, Der Fuhrer. Well, Der Satan, maybe. Yeah. So after all of that, you would think that it would be hard for anybody to recover from that and still have a following. But MAGAs that's our Messiah. genuflex or
Absolutely.
salute, whatever it is they want to do. And so you think that
Genuflex.
after that, and he comes out and says, "Oh yeah, I really am the Antichrist. I am Satan incarnate." You would have thought that that would have been pretty much it for him, but then he doubled down and he said, "You know, I think that all those politicians there in that horrible Minnesota, the despicable
Where they murdered a woman?
politicians and Minnesota, and of course, the most despicable, dishonest politician ever would be Donald Trump. And he said that because of their insurrection, which is Donald Trump is leading the insurrection of America, he's going to usher in the Insurrection Act so that he can put American troops and U.S. troops in American cities and make America a military state. That's and you would think that that would have been enough to shoo away all of the MAGAs. Even a MAGA's got to say, oh, okay, well, you're talking about a military state. I'm opposed to that. But nope. What he did yesterday evening in the White House has to be the most amazing thing we'd ever thought we'd hear from an American politician. He says, I don't see any reason for us to have any more elections.
Of course not.
It's amazing.
Unbelievable.
To defend Donald Trump after he says that, to be a MAGA at that point, you have to have your head so far up your tuchus that you will never see the light of day again.
Nope.
It's just beyond the pale. It's so far beyond any question that he is the great betrayer, that he is the incarnation of Satan in the last days that the prophets spoke. I've brought that to everybody's attention. November 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, in November of 24 is when I said Donald Trump is the person that Christians know as the Antichrist. He's the great betrayer. He is Satan incarnate. And the next 8 years at that time are going to be the most devastating in human history. And by the time this is all over, you're going to recognize that Donald Trump, with Satan's spirit, is in fact far worse than was Adolf Hitler or Stalin or Lenin or Mao Zedong or any of those characters. Mm-hmm. He's going to go down as the single most devastatingly destructive and dishonest person who ever lived.
Do you recall when he stated to the press that he could go and shoot someone in downtown Manhattan and get away with murder?
Yeah.
Well, he has. He just did it in Minnesota.
Yes.
And they still don't see it.
Yeah.
So no, politics have become a religion.
Correct. Oh, I still get all sorts of pushback on Facebook and that.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
How dare you say that ICE is like the brown shirts? I had one guy say, I think you have to be a dimwit to compare ICE to the brown shirts, because I don't see in Trump's America a crystal knock or a death camps for Jews. I wrote him back. I said, okay, so you called us dimwits for making this comparison. Are you aware that the brown shirts came to a violent end at the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, June of 1934? And do you know that Kristallnacht didn't happen for another 4.5 years in November of 1938? Are you aware that the first death camp and mass execution of Jews didn't take place until the following year after the Grand Mufti met with Adolf Hitler in November of 1941? And so it's 1942, which another 4 years removed. So now 8 years away from the demise of the brown shirts. Are you not aware that the brown shirts pursued Hitler's political rivals and that they were not rounding up Jews, but that was the job of the Gestapo and the SS years later? And now that you have been confronted with the truth, are you going to have the character to apologize?
Hell no.
But this is what we're up against.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I had one person write in all caps that ICE has shown such great restraint in doing such a professional job.
What?
And, against all abuse by everybody. And I said, no problem. I'll keep your caps key in lock, and I'll share that with Renee Good. I think she'd be delighted to hear that. It's just astonishing, the period we're in. And we're, in this program, family hour celebration of the Torah, you would think that we would turn directly to the Torah of the prophets. But the reason that we talk about other things prior to that time is that this time is fairly straightforward. And that is that the prophets have a lot to say about this latter-day individual that is demon-possessed, and the damage he will do not only to the world and to his country, but also to Israel. And so it is our requirement, our job requirement, to expose and condemn the evil that lurks now in the White House and the consequence to the world of what's going to happen. And we do not say this as liberals. I'm too conservative to be a Republican. So we certainly do not say it as liberals. In fact, there isn't a liberal in our panel here. We say it as moral individuals who are informed and rational and who know precisely what the prophets had to say and are trying to warn people about the consequence of this. And yes, I understand that Trump's going after the Sunday people, not the Saturday people, that he is hunting Hispanics along with his political rivals and not Jews. It doesn't really matter the ethnicity. What he's doing is dead wrong. And beyond the fact that the people he's hunting down are decent people, family people, they're people that are employed and making a contribution to our country and have for quite some time. But beyond all of that, when race becomes your driving force and you have galvanized yourself into a community because of racial hatred, you're evil. It's all there is to it. And
black, white, brown, or indifferent.
And they will
You're
move
just evil.
from one race to another, and pretty soon it'll be just like the Aryan supremacy in Germany.
Yep.
Craig,
just wrong.
Leah and fellas, we mentioned it's going to be the Insurrection Act to create a Trump world government. Keep in mind with the analogies that you make to Muhammad and other terrible characters in history. And also keep in mind that the likes of a Jeffrey Epstein assessed the situation and said, Trump is a bad guy.
Yeah.
There's very little difference between Trump and Muhammad. Both were equally illiterate. Both were absolute confabulators, no correlation between what they said and reality. Both were mass murderers.
Sexual
both engaged in human trafficking. Both were both had problems even managing incest in addition to pedophilia. Both were rapists. Very little difference between Muhammad and Donald Trump. That's probably why the Islamic potentates found him so easy to bring under their umbrella and bribe him. So it is really a tragic situation we're witnessing, and we're seeing designs on controlling the world. He wants to control Russia. He wants to control Ukraine. He wants to control Europe. He wants to
extend the analogy that you've made, Craig. Hegseth is his Goering, and Miller is his Goebbels.
Yes, it is. Yep, and his ego is to be the leader of the world. He said, I view myself not as a president of America, but as the president of the world. And he said that yesterday. This is his ambition. And it is frightening. All we can do is warn people about it, hopefully get their attention. The reason we do that, twofold, because it's always right to stand up against evil. But second of all, the first condition of the covenant for you to be part of God's family is you have to walk away from religion and politics. And to do that, you need to know how evil religion and politics actually are. So we're going to return to the text of Isaiah 57. I think you guys know that I did a long 2-hour show on it yesterday, or day before yesterday, I guess was the time, with the express purpose of not having to go back to the negative part of that. In Isaiah 56 and 57, we turned to it initially because I wanted to demonstrate from Yahweh himself that the Shamuw'el harvest was a harvest of people, and that people are going to disappear during the fulfillment of Shamuw'el. and the world will not know where they have gone. And yet God is saying you're going to a place of ultimate contentment and satisfaction. So the 57th chapter of Yashega Isaiah and the first two statements has Yahweh in first person expressing this. But Yahweh, for the next, probably 10 statements, he zeroed in on one particular evil woman. And he called her everything from a sorceress, demonic, to a whore, pandering to people, faking adoration and love. And he told us that she was a great betrayer, betraying everybody that she had ever met.
Oh, yeah.
And that she was aided by a highly unfaithful and unreliable man. And God went on to describe what they did that was so hellacious from his point of view. And he's describing a particular woman that most of the listeners in this audience know. And he went so far as to say, I'm dispatching them to Sheol. I'm sending them to hell. And then he went on and condemned them all the more for being completely disingenuous. And what I was hoping to do with the 2-hour program is to be done with it. And then we could move on, because the last statement that I read was the concluding thought that Yahweh had on them. And I think it's Yahweh's preference never to have to mention them again as well. But, sometimes people just don't give you any other option. The problem in the world of just human interactions is that if someone falsely accuses another and the person that's being accused doesn't respond, they are presumed guilty. So you have no choice. If somebody is slandering you, you have to respond to them. It doesn't matter how absurd the lie is, you have to respond. Well, this individual in her group was slandering Yahweh, Dode, the Yada Yahowah series, which we've taken 24 years of our lives to complete, the Yahweh blog, all of you in particular, naming each of you, and myself and my wife. And after a while, God said, I've had enough. And he unleashed on them. And if we find another place where God wants to expose and condemn them, we're going to share it. That's what we do. But what we really would rather do, of course, is to teach. And we're in a really unique situation, guys. I think maybe a little perspective before we start back in Yeshaya 57, Isaiah 57. And that is where we are and what we've discovered. As you know, we have written 35 books like this. This is coming home here in one of 35 books, translating the Dead Sea Scrolls into English in an amplified fashion and explaining insights that probably 10,000 of them no one has previously perceived. To explain exactly who Yahweh is, reintroduce Yahweh's name to the world, prove that it's pronounced Yahweh. Then to reintroduce his beloved Son. The Son of God is not Jesus. Jesus never existed. The Messiah is not Jesus. The Messiah and the Son of God are Dode. And he's the one who was crucified in 33 CE by his own testimony, fulfilling Passover, and then he took our guilt into Sheol on Matzah. And we were the first to deduce that and to prove it and to declare it. I think it's the single most valuable discovery in human history.
Yeah.
If you don't want to agree, then you're not going to be part of humanity going forward, because that's how important that conclusion is.
Oh, it's a sticking point for sure.
Yes.
Dode is the Messiah.
Dode is the Messiah. But it's not just that Dode is the Messiah. Dode is also the Son of God. Dode is the chosen one. And Dode is the exemplar of the covenant. And he is the one who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, Bekurim in 33 CE, year 4,000 Yah, making him our Savior. So that's profound. And we have been pursuing all insights that would help people understand these things, and to understand that the covenant comes with conditions. You're entering God's family. And if you're going to be covenant, you're eternal in God's family, and he has standards. And there are 5 conditions of the covenant, and we have tried to underscore them so people understood what was expected should they want to be part of God's family. And then we have explained how the benefits of the covenant were delivered through the fulfillment, particularly of the spring Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim by Dode in 33 CE, and what each of those events delivered relative to our reconciliation and salvation, our inclusion in God's family, our enrichment, and our empowerment. And we've talked a lot about what God specifically is offering in the sense of getting out of our physical bodies and having our nephesh souls enveloped in or light, such that we are empowered, we're enriched, we're enabled, and we can leave this planet and go explore the universe with Yahweh. We can be immortal and so much more capable than we are in these limited bodies. And we've tried to explain to people, this is what God's offering. And if you want to be part of it, he has a very specific recipe that one needs to understand and capitalize upon and follow. And as we pursued that, we had reason to return to the narrative of the garden. And the reason I keep going back to that is because God's plan, his story, began with Adam in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. And he concludes his story with man by returning us to Gan Eden. And so we're only 7.5 years away from a remnant of humanity and the covenant family being invited back into Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, as God restores the entire earth to the conditions of Eden for this remnant after obliterating all traces of religion, politics, and conspiracy, militarism, even patriotism, are all going to be expunged from the earth, and the earth will be returned to the conditions of Eden, and we'll have 1,000 years to prepare this mortal remnant that enters Eden with the opportunity to earn God's trust. Now, that sounds like an odd thing, to earn God's trust, because the mortal remnant aren't necessarily what you'd call saved. They aren't immortal. They're mortal, and they'll be mortal through most of that 1,000-year period. And so what we learn is that the story that everyone thinks they know about Eden with Adam and Eve and the apple and all of that sort of thing, and the serpent, very little of that is true. Yes, there was a man named Adam, or in fact, it might not even be a name, it just means man. The woman's name, however, was Chawah, which means to state one's mind. It does not mean Eve. And the experiment in the garden ended before Chawah was even conceived. So it wasn't her fault. And God doesn't say that man caused the fall of man. He says that he did. Mm-hmm. The fall is the term, that the verb that he used. And he explained that the reason he was creating Chawah, the woman, for Adam, was that it wasn't good for man to be alone. Well, would man have been alone if God intended to continue to keep his company?
Nope.
No.
So God had already made the decision. It was over. The relationship was not what God had anticipated. It was not productive, and he was ending it. And so when you recognize that, then if you're thoughtful, you're going to go back and say, why did God end this relationship? What does that tell us about God? What does that tell us about man? What does it tell us about those conditions? And it's when you look at things from that perspective that you can actually gain this thing that's more beneficial than gabapentin after you've been torn to ribbons by your doctor. And that is understanding. Kirk is laughing at me here. Here's the truth. God told us before he even conceived man that he was looking for man to model 2 different things. What were they?
Trustworthiness.
Actually, he didn't say trustworthiness. I've deduced that, and I'll explain why I deduced it. It happens to be the single most important criterion. You're correct. But it actually wasn't one of the two that were stated.
Interesting.
That wasn't stated either. It's
Okay.
implied.
Will he listen?
I didn't actually use Shema,
Okay.
but that's close.
Got it surrounded.
You got it all surrounded, pal. You're
Productive and being able to work with him.
being observant, shamar, and being able to make a contribution to work with him. Those were the two things that he stated that he wanted man to be able to do. So let's think that through.
Mhm.
Why would God say, I want you to be observant? Do you think there's things in the garden that God hadn't seen?
No.
You think there's any part of the universe that God hasn't explored or knows that it's there?
Hardly.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So God is telling us that he wanted man to be observant because the entire purpose of creating humankind is for us to be traveling companions, for us to go off and explore the universe together. I'm sure you've all done things that in your life that you were proud of momentarily or for a long time. And if no one enjoys it with you, if you painted your best painting ever, and no one loves it so much that they make it the backdrop of your studio, and if you do something that's really wonderful, and nobody enjoys it or with you, it kind of loses its appeal, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, God created this magnificent universe, probably lots of life in it, and he wants to share it. And he wants to go off and explore it. But I'm going to tell you, the conditions off of this planet are infinitely more complicated and caustic and toxic than the conditions in this protective enclosure that we call Earth. And so he's looking for someone that's going to be observant, because what fun would it be to take somebody who, oh, are we there yet? And I'll go on a road trip with the kids and say, aren't we there yet? Why don't you look out the window? It's really pretty. Are we there yet? I'm bored. And so he's looking for somebody that's observant, because they're the kind of fun people to go explore with. And that's what he wants to do. It's his, he created the universe for this. He's entitled to spend eternity with those people that he thinks are observant. And plus the fact he was going to provide lots of insights that he thought, if we closely examined and carefully considered, we would grow and benefit from them. If you're a dad and you've got a kid and your kid pays no attention to what you say and model and do, then what's the purpose of that relationship? So observant for that reason. Then he asked Adam, told us that Adam would be working in the garden. Abad is the Hebrew word. It means to work, to make a contribution, to do something. And so what God is saying is, I'm not looking for a dependent. I'm not looking for somebody who thinks they're entitled. I'm not looking for a couch potato. If you think that heaven is going to be sitting on fluffy clouds and eating bonbons, the answer is no. God is looking for people who like to work, who value work. We get up, before the sun. We put in 14-hour days. We make a contribution because it's productive, because it creates value, because it's satisfying, and because it pleases our God. God
Look at that
likes
wonderful
to work.
word, Craig. Look at the wonderful word that's used in Mizmowr 89, Ebed,
Yes.
co-worker. And who's he referring
Yeah.
to? Most important
Yeah.
man in the universe.
You know the difference between Ebed, co-worker, and Abad, the verb for work, in the Hebrew writing?
Just a vowel. So
And Allah.
It's spelled
Nothing.
the same.
The answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. The verb and the noun are written exactly the same way. So when Yahweh says that Dod, that would be David, is his co-worker, the one that he chose to work through, then what he is giving you is a profound insight that the work that Dod did was with Yahweh and brought great pleasure and satisfaction to Yahweh, accomplishing something Yahweh as God wanted done.
That's right.
And when God says that Dod is his chosen one, and we're then told that Dode worked with Yahweh. He was his co-worker. That should give you a clue that Dode figured it out, that Adam was a bum. He was lethargic. And what God's looking for is for us to engage, to make a contribution. I think it's absolutely beautiful what God is saying here. And I've been a worker all my life. I find real pleasure in work. And what God is saying the same thing. They say, we're going to be together for a long time. How in the world are we going to do anything that creates something of value if we don't all make a contribution? Leah and I have a wonderful relationship, but we both work at it. We both make a contribution to our relationship. And the moment you stop making a contribution to your relationship and both working at it, then one is a dependent, and the relationship is not 1 + 1 = 10, but 1 + 1 = 1.
That's right.
And so he likes work.
Without being too punny and to sock it to the Roman Catholics, Yah's real quote unquote, and I'm using the word pejoratively, is Trinity. Is look at the relationship between Ebed and Obed. That's those three. That's
all the same. Yeah. And Obed is the name of Obed Edom, and Obed Edom is the man doing the work. Associated with Edom, and Edom was the descendants of Esau, and Esau is part of Yisrael. I mean, that was Jacob's brother, denied of his birthright, and so the man from Edom is responsible for reunifying Israel and delivering the fractured family back as a whole, and delivering the birthright that was forsaken. So it's a marvelous metaphor from God, and we're told the man from Edom saves many from Yahshua. So then, if you look then at what Yahweh said about Adam, he said he was comatose, he was lethargic, so he didn't work, and there is not a single trace of any indication that Adam paid any attention, was observant. And then you get to the real issue. Is that when you're not observant and you don't work, you can't be trusted. And there was no way for Adam to resolve that problem in the garden because it was too protected. When all the food that you could ever eat, perfect comfort, perfect safety, when everything is just peachy keen all of the time, you have no way to prove that you can be trusted.
Yeah.
And so there was no way for Adam to ever be anything more than a goldfish in a bowl. And that grew wearisome with God. And it's not because God's looking for perfection, because the man that God chose that he loves more than any other was imperfect. Dode. So he's not looking for perfection. What he's looking for is the opposite of what Adam became. When Adam fell, he stayed down. When Adam made a mistake, he doubled down. And what God's looking for is when somebody stumbles and falls, they get back up and they demonstrate that they're capable of doing that. And when they make a mistake, they learn from it and grow as a result of it. That's what Dode did. That's what Adam did not do. And so we learn a lot about what God was looking for in the garden. And then if you know what Adam failed to deliver and why God foreclosed on that experiment, then you come to realize what God's trying to achieve when he brings us back to Edom. And he's very clear that during Towrah in 2033, which is year 6000, the 23rd and the 24th of September of that year, God is very clear. He says, I'm going to incinerate all traces of religion and politics, the political and the religious. And then I'm going to transform the earth back in the conditions experienced in Eden, the entire planet. Now, the same day, he brings in the mortal remnant of Yisrael from around the world that are only guilty of what he would call crimes of omission rather than commission. They were misled, but they were not misleading. And he's bringing Goyim, a modicum of Goyim that would be the same. All into Yisrael. They'll be purged by the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, the red heifer. And at that moment, what you have is the new entrance to Eden. They'll be back allowed into Eden 15 days thereafter, 5 days after Dod and Yahweh return on Kippurim. And the only reason that God would have us come back into the conditions of Eden in a sheltered environment for 1,000 years is so that the covenant children who are harvested on Shamuw'el and Towrah are given the opportunity to set an example, to teach, and to help these mortals grow, learn, demonstrate that they can be trusted. Because what God ultimately wants is to release all of us from the constraints of our physical bodies, envelop us in light energy so that we can transcend dimensionality and travel through the entire universe, because we don't have physical bodies and the limitations of them anymore. So even the speed of light is not a limitation. Not that you go faster than the speed of light, but that speed and is a function of velocity over time, and time simply exists on a photon of light. So you can be anywhere at any moment. And God can provide that for us and is providing that for us. But, it's dangerous out there. And there's quasars, there's black holes. Stars are nuclear furnaces. So there's things that you've got to be really careful of. If you were to travel in the past, back in time and mess with anything, you could screw everything up. So God can't take people off of this planet and turn them into light energy unless he can trust you explicitly. And the only way for him to do that is for him to establish this covenant, for us to understand what we must forego to be part of it, what we must accept to go forward with it, and then demonstrate that we can be trusted to work with him and engage with him, doing his bidding as did Dod, and do so resolutely. This is our opportunity. This is who we are. This is what we're offering to anyone who will listen. And it's the only way off of this planet alive. I know that Der Fuhrer's little helper, Elon Musk and the Musketeers, are off now telling you, no worry, we're going to become a multi-planetary species, and I'm going to have 1 million people living on Mars. No human's going to get off this earth and live for any prolonged period of time on any moon or planet anywhere in the universe. Not going to happen. The only way off of this planet and to survive it for any prolonged period of time is to be transformed into light as a result of your acceptance into the covenant. And the reason I say that with Mars in particular is the entire environment is toxic. Getting there is all physically so absurdly difficult as to be impossible. And the time that you were en route there and coming back, your body would completely give up on you. You would have a 0% possibility of returning to Earth and living. And the odds of you getting to Mars are slim. Your odds of landing a spaceship like that on Mars is really remote, and surviving it, absurdly remote. And the odds that everything's going to work and you're not going to have a single failure in oxygen generation and water generation and rocket fuel generation and habitat creation and spacesuit reliability and your habitat reliability, because you know how long it would take if there's a rupture in your spacesuit or your habitat for you to die?
Okay.
Yeah, you might have 10 seconds. Your blood will boil. And you can't use the dirt to grow anything. So you can't, there's nothing in the air that's going to have any value to you. It's 1% of the earth, half of 1% of the earth. You have no protection from cosmic rays. There's no magnetic core generating the protection, magnetosphere. You've got nothing. It's the most hostile place you could possibly imagine. That's why the Earth is a microcosm. Eden was a microcosm of the planet Earth. It's a sheltered enclosure conducive to life, where we have the opportunity to demonstrate that we're interesting, that we can be observant, that we can be co-workers, that we can engage, and then we can be trusted. And being trusted, again, this is one of the great mistakes of the religious. They think that you're supposed to be perfect, but no, God doesn't want you to be perfect. Perfect would be boring. God's not even perfect. When God said, I regretted creating man, that's just, he's admitting that he's not perfect. I mean, we project all sorts of things on God that just are untrue. They want to make God omniscient and all powerful, all knowing, omnipresent. None of those things are true, and they can't be true. And so, the fact is that God's very different than he's presented in religion, and this opportunity is very different than people perceive. But here we are. Our job is to convey what God conveyed to us so that you're in a position to capitalize.
Craig, in speaking about the importance, as you terminate the commentary on Yasha'yah 57, it's imperative that I think we just all realize that the mission that you've been assigned to complete cannot fail, and it cannot be interfered with. Hence, the amount of ink and space given to that individual who
Makes sense.
we all know. It's imperative to know how important it is, because without the Etz Da'eth, there's no Etz Chaim, and it all goes down the tubes. And to carry on the amazing podcast you had yesterday, going through Mizmowr 89 and then doubling, quadrupling down on Yasha'yah 9, 9:6, 9:7 to make it even more potent was quite spectacular. And I'm biased here, but I'm hoping that at some point we can get into that, because that is very exciting.
Yeah, it was I thought the most compelling hour that we have done thus far. It was in our Ocean studio yesterday. I pinned it to the top of the Facebook page. And during that presentation, we made considerable progress through some of the last lines of the 89th Mizmowr. And the 89th Psalm, Yahweh was explicit. He says that Dod is the Messiah and that he personally anointed Dod. So not only was he anointed on God's instructions 3 times, that God personally anointed him with his oil. He says that Dod is his chosen one. He says that Dod is his co-worker, the one through whom he achieves greatness. He says that Dod is his son and that he is his father. He says that Dod is the exemplar of the covenant. He says that Dod is the one who enabled the benefits of the covenant, which means he's our savior. He called Dod the sacrificial lamb, which means he fulfilled Passover. He says that Dod his seat of honor will exist forever. That he will always be focused upon Dod. He says that when Dod returns with him, his position relative to God and his throne will be as brilliant as the sun. Yahweh says of Dod in the 89th Mizmowr that Dod is Elyon. That means that Dod is all things pertaining to the influence of God. Now, he says all of those things about Dod. And he says, if anything that I've said about Dod is shown to be untrue, then you can call me a liar. This is God Almighty saying this. And yet the essence of the Christian and the Jewish religion is to call God a liar.
Yeah.
Because they deny that Dod is the Son of God or the Messiah or the returning king, or that he is the Savior. They deny all of this, and they afford it to false messiahs, Bar Kokhba or Jesus. And so the essence of the two Abrahamic religions are to call God a liar. And we transitioned from that to Isaiah 9, 6, and 7, which is probably the single most cited, known prophecy throughout. And one that's absolutely shown to have existed going back 2,400 years ago, the great Isaiah scroll. And there's multiple scrolls of Isaiah. There's more scrolls of Isaiah than anything other than Dode Psalms. Dode Psalms, the most manuscripts of Dode Psalms in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then followed by Isaiah. Then by the Torah scrolls, particularly Dabarim, Deuteronomy. And so we transition to it because when you read what the words actually say, not what they're concocted to be in your English Bible, what the words actually say, and the name that is given in the midst of the prophecy in 9, 6, and 7 that speak of the Son who is given to us. There's only one person named the Son of God, and that's Dode. Of this Gabor, of which Dode is frequently called, it means this strong and capable fighter on behalf of God's people, Gabor, Dode. A child born in the ordinary way, and then a son who was given, whose lives are magnificent, miraculous. There's a witness for Yahweh. And it names him right in the middle of it. And yet Christians steal it on behalf of their pretend God, their man God. It says right in the middle of it, it's Dode. And so there shouldn't have been a single Christian on the planet. Now you notice that the Christian New Testament doesn't cite Isaiah 9, 6, and 7. You know why? They know that it speaks of Dode. And the only way you can make it of Jesus is to have your God have amnesia, or your God have some other mental disorder so that your God is so stupid he can't remember his own son's name. He said it's Dode. When you combine an accurate translation of Isaiah, Yashayah, 9, 6, and 7, which I translated from the Dead Sea Scrolls, with the 89th Psalm, it's just over. It completely obliterates the pretense of Christianity or Jesus or Judaism with its founder, with Akiba creating the false Messiah, Bar Kokhba. Devastates them. And that was the conclusion of our Ocean Studio presentation yesterday.
It was beautifully brutal, Craig. And I used the terms: you annihilated, eviscerated, and castrated Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. You essentially ripped the heart out without using anesthesia, and to a point where you were more Gaborish than usual. And I got the impression that Elia was blushing about it.
Yeah, Elia is pretty forceful as a communicator. And what I told you, you shared that with me last night in the evening and with Leah and a personal phone call. And what I said to you is the same thing I'll say now. I didn't create that argument. All I did is accurately render and explain the 89th Psalm and make the connection, which is called a bien in Hebrew, with Yashayah, Isaiah 9, 6, and 7. I made the connection between the two. And when you bring those two texts together, they eviscerate Christianity. They annihilate the myth of Jesus. I said today on one of our shows that I killed Jesus and I would do it again. I did. And there's 5 volumes as part of this series. And as part of this series, I completely devastate the lie that is Christianity. Jesus does not survive it. And if a man can kill Jesus, and I want to tell you, in my case, there's no resurrection. There's no birth of Jesus. There's no Christmas. There's no Easter. There's no resurrection. There's no nothing. He did not exist. He was conceived by Paul in 52 CE, and I prove it conclusively, overwhelmingly. And I prove that Paul was nothing but a liar, that the Christian New Testament is just a pile of lies. It's irrefutable. And I don't have to have any outside sources. The entire 5 volumes, almost 4,000 pages, is based entirely on comparing Peter, Paul's, Mark's, Luke's words to Yahweh's words, to Dode's words. And they don't match. They're absolutely opposed to one another. And the fact is that Yahweh proved that his are true through prophecy. There is no fulfilled prophecy in the New Testament. And when somebody claims that they're speaking for God and misquotes God and conveys a message that's the opposite of God's, they're lying. There is no other option than that. They're just lying. And in the case of Paul, it even gets worse than just lying about God choosing him, because he never once quotes God accurately and misquotes God 100% of the time. But he also claims that he was chosen by his mythical Jesus. But how many times, fellas, does he actually cite something from mythical Jesus?
Not one time.
Zero.
Zero.
Goose
So how
egg.
could you be so stupid to believe that there was a Jesus that authorized Paul to be his lone disciple to the world when he never once quotes Jesus, ever? Ever. And how many people in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms were authorized by Yahweh to speak for him that didn't use Yahweh's name?
Not a single one.
Not a single one, zero.
Paul never mentions Yahweh's name.
Yeah.
No, there's not mention of Yahweh's name anywhere in the Christian New Testament. They're not inspired by Yahweh. And how many of Yahweh's prophets have a confession that says, oh, yeah, well, I had a really big ego, so Satan had to control me, so I'm demon-possessed?
Never hear that.
My pal, Yasha Isaiah, I don't recall him ever saying something like that.
No.
I hear him getting really excited when he finally meets his Zeroah, and the man from Edom gets into that wine vat with him, and we start sloshing around. But no. Now, there is one person who admits that he's demon-possessed. Well, I don't know if he personally admitted it, but it was Yahweh said he's demon-possessed. One person in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. It's the
Shaul.
prototype of Shamuw'el to come. The king
It's
Shaul
King.
admits that he was demon possessed. Of course, he tried to change the Torah to suit his interests and got too big for his britches, and that's what happened. He gave way to a demon. Now, you know what's really interesting about that? Because we were talking about the programs about how could somebody who was active working in the covenant family, making a contribution, go from that to being described as demonic and being sent off to hell? Well, the answer is also in Shaul, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
after the people picked Shaul, and God said, they've rejected me by picking him, God says, I'm going to give them what they want. And he had his spirit come upon Shaul. Said, I'm going to give them what they want. I'm going to tell them why it's wrong, but I'm going to give them what they want. And yet he turned on Yahweh. He turned on the Torah. Well, he had every advantage in the world.
That killed
So
Noah.
he is another example, just like Miriam, Moshe's sister, who led the Song of the Sea as a prophetess and later is struck with leprosy and condemned and divorced. So absolutely possible to be perceived, to at least to perceive yourself as being part of the covenant family, making a contribution, and then writing yourself out of the story and actually going so far as to end up in Sheol, which is where Shaul has found himself.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason Dode didn't want to kill him. It wasn't that he was king. It wasn't that it was his wife's or his wife's father. He said he was Yah's anointed as well. He had been anointed by Yah. I'm not touching him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not touching it. Now, it was a wrong call. Dode made a lot of wrong calls. It was a wrong call.
Mm-hmm.
A man sends his army out to kill you, and he is dedicated to your death. When you are absolutely Yah's anointed, you're Yah's chosen, and a man's trying to kill you, and you say, go ahead and hunt me down. I'm just going to keep on running from you, and you get in a position where you're smarter and more clever than he is, and you have a position where you can take him out, and you say, well, what the heck, I'm not going to do it, even though he may.
Got to kill him first. You got to kill him first.
Yeah, that's. I'm sorry, I disagree with Dode's choice there. And Dode made a lot of bad choices, and that's one of the reasons why Dode is the exemplar for us, and the exemplar of Yisrael. With Dode, what we learn is that God's not looking for perfection. What he's looking is for somebody that makes mistakes, learns from them, and grows as a result, gets up and gets going. And he also showed with Dode the advantage of having people around you that can kick you in the butt from now and again.
Mhm.
And that's what happened with Dode when he got all wimpy over Absalom leading a coup against him.
Yes.
And he was told, hey, you need to get out of this funk and show that you're worthy of the people's veneration of you. So it's why Dode has a herald going forward, a lesser luminary to reflect his light, and somebody that he can bounce ideas off of, and who can occasionally put his arm around his shoulder and say, "Hey, pal, that ain't the best call. better way to go about it than that." And it's also the reason why we have a support team and a family, because same thing's true with me. You guys are responsible to say, I don't think that's the right move. I think you need to think it through, and let's try a different tactic. And we have to do that with one another. God does that with us. Why shouldn't we do that for one another? Right?
Yeah.
So within 57 minutes, you've destroyed, with the same material that Elon has and his program has, you've proven he can't do a damn thing that he says he can. You've wiped out Christianity in the most obvious way, just like that. So in 57, pretty much cleaned up the earth. So if they'd listen,
we could take care of Islam too if we give me a few minutes. I'd be happy to take care of that too.
While we're here, while we're all together,
while we're here, and to repudiate Judaism, I'm happy to do that too. In fact, I can actually repudiate Judaism and Islam in the same sentence. Pretty straightforward. We've denounced politics. We've denounced religion. Why we do so? Because God's real clear. If you look at who he chose to work with, look at Noah. Why did Yahweh approach Noah? What was unique about Noah? There's only one thing that was unique about Noah at the time. What was it?
He responded. Anah.
Well, he did those two things, but that's not why Yahweh approached him.
Because he
was observant.
Nope. Captain of the King of the Cables
He
had the
walked
answer.
away.
He had walked away. He had walked away from the Nephilim. The Nephilim were all around, and he had disassociated himself from them. He was out living in the boonies, apart from the religious and political milieu of the Nephilim, who Yahweh says were Hamas.
I think we all walked away in our earlier days. We didn't even know it.
Right.
You didn't know it.
I just
I knew I walked away.
You knew
because
you walked away, but you didn't know it.
I was raised a Christian. I was the youngest elder and ordained elder in the history of the Presbyterian Church. I taught and led evangelism. I taught Bible studies. I had Christianity up to here, and I was a student of the religion. And then gradually, I have kept on asking myself questions that no one could answer. The lead Hebrew scholars and major universities whom I encountered, they couldn't answer the questions. And I realized that there were 100 questions that are unresolvable in the Christian religion. And I finally said, why am I believing something that I know to be untrue? So I disassociated from Christianity. And in politics, because I made a fortune in business, I was coveted by politicians because they covet money. And the more I came to know them and the more I came to study the history of my nation, the more disgusting I saw them and it. And so I left both. So I left politics and I was disgusted by it. And I was very political, extremely conservative and political, and a patriot and pro-military and all those kinds of things. And, I'm the opposite of that now. I'm not the opposite of conservative. I'd still be conservative, but all the rest of it. And I am antagonistic towards the religion of Christianity, having written 5 books to disprove it. So I had walked away. When Yahweh first introduced himself to me, I didn't know his name. That was the same thing with Moshe, same thing with Noah. Neither knew his name when he introduced himself. Same thing would be true with Abraham. But I had walked away from religion and politics. And all of us have to have done that to some extent before Yahweh's testimony is going to resonate with you and you can make the choice to learn more and respond to him. So we've all disassociated from religion and politics. That's the thing that made Noach special. And now from that point on, the lesson of Noach is that after you leave religion and politics, if you listen to Yahweh and do what he says, then you and your family are going to do really well. You're going to be saved, even if all people fall around you. And what Noach did is God said, these are the instructions. I want you to build this boat. And Noach did as Yahweh asked, and it worked out beautifully for him. Mm-hmm. And that's the moral of the story and the lesson of the story. And the same thing ultimately true with Abraham after they walked away from Babel. He and his wife and listened to what Yahweh had to say and ultimately responded to it. Worked out beautifully for them. So this is part of our responsibility, is to get people to realize that religion and politics are evil. They're counterproductive. They lead people in the wrong direction. They're not all spokes in the wheel in the sense that they all lead to God. It's more like a wheel with centrifugal force. Those are all spokes that lead away from God.
Away from.
So,
well, the reason I made a big deal of this, Craig, is that you were, white hot last night. You had the 7 ruach going, and basically you weren't using jet fuel. You were using nuclear fuel, and that's what made it different. And that's why I thought it was important to bring up, because I didn't think there was a way that you could augment or potentiate the power of, Mizmowr 89, but it happened.
It happened. Yeah, the 89th Psalm is the greatest piece of literature ever written. It's God's song to his beloved son, Dode. Mm-hmm. And in and of itself, it proves that Dode is the Savior, the Son of God, the Messiah, the returning King. And thereby disproves Christianity and Judaism. A child can disprove Islam. There's nothing in Islam that's even remotely accurate. Quran's the worst book ever written. And I'm not saying that as a pejorative.
No.
I've earned the right to say it because I've written 4,200 pages, 5 volumes, by reordering the Quran chronologically, setting it into the context of Muhammad's life using the earliest and most credible hadith sources. And by doing so, I have conclusively proven that Islam is a death cult, and that Allah is not a god and Muhammad wasn't a prophet, and far worse than that. So I say it as a statement of fact, not opinion. But these are important things to know. It's important to know that religion has corrupted God's name, his nature, his son, our Savior. And in religion, the religious don't have a clue as to what God's timeline is. It's all over in 7.5 years. They'd have no idea what the next event is, which is the fulfillment of Shamuw'el, what it represents, or what's going to happen on Towrah or Kippurim, on Sukkah, or why God's going to eradicate the religious and the political before he restores the conditions that were enjoyed in Eden over the entire earth. But this is our mission. This is why we're here. So if we return to Yeshaya 57, we are now to the place where the prophetic witness is now a good guy. God has transitioned from really the horrible statements that he had to make about the malcontents. And he is saying there's a much better option. The option comes very highly recommended. And therefore, this concluding statement of a previous verse, the people who created chapter and verse designations had no concept what they were doing. They certainly didn't understand the text. And there's some really odd divisions that do not exist in the original text. In the original text, there are no chapters and verses. They're just books that are presented as a stream of consciousness from God and through the prophet. And so this statement belongs what I would really think, we're still the 57th chapter, but it's so removed from the vitriol that God used to excoriate what we refer to as the mother goddess cult, that this really should have been the beginning of a new chapter. And it reads, however, the one who takes refuge in me, the one who seeks my protection by trusting and relying on me to keep him or her safe, comforting them, he will be allotted and he will inherit the material realm, the land, the earth, and he will become an heir to my set apart mountain. This is the conclusion of Yeshayah 57:13. You can read Eretz as material realm, which would include the entire material universe, or as the planet Earth, or as a region, territory, or the land of Israel, even as the ground upon which we walk. There's times when the more expressive, comprehensive meaning seems to be appropriate. This one, I rendered Eretz as the material realm, which would include the entire universe. And I think it's appropriate here because that is what God's children are inheriting. God has a universe. It's 2 trillion galaxies with hundreds of billions of stars in each galaxy. And that's what he is offering to us. That is what we inherit. But it all revolves around Mount Moriah, his set apart mountain. And, that is where his son fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim. It is where we will fulfill Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. So this is the place where God will reestablish with Dode his covenant home and the home for his name. It is all on Moriah. And I can assure you, there will be a cleanup at least 3.5 years prior to that time when Satan's scars, the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, are gone. And that entire Temple Mount will be purged. It will be taken back to the conditions during Dode's life and Solomon's. And there will be, during the time of the 2 witnesses, the tent of the restoring testimony will be reappear there, as will the Ark of the Covenant will be placed inside of it. And then after Dode returns, Dode will have the opportunity to create the final home for Yahweh's name, most likely out of light. No reason to build it out of stone. You saw that it was just an announcement a couple of days ago that they have found much of the footings and the original floor plan for Dode's home on a part of the ridge line in the city of Dode below Mount Moriah. Yeah, it looks like some restoration is needed. I love home restoration. I hope I get the nod. I'd like to do the job. But I think a little home improvement might be in the offing. It looks a little rough right at the moment. And so take care of our king. Make sure he's comfy. Well,
did Dode say, hey, did I tell you to start stacking rocks?
No,
for
he
me?
didn't. He did not. That's a funny line. That's a funny line.
We can build them out of light now, brother.
Yeah, man.
So
I know we can build them out of light. I'm going to be. I'll be nudging him anyway because I just love home restoration. So it's be, please, let me have a swing at this. Have you considered doing this with the great room? Right. This is the greatest of the views. Let's capitalize on it, shall we? So I'll be an annoyance for sure. But the line that you're saying comes from 2 Samuel 7, where Dode's saying, I was out there living in curtains. Blowing in the breeze, and here I am in a house of cedar. So I think I need to build a house of cedar for Yahweh. And so Yahweh comes, hey, kid, did I ever once tell the children of Israel that I wanted you to build me a house of cedar? Ever once when I freed them from Israel, when I Mitzrayim, when I did all this for them, was there any time that I actually said, I want you to build me a house out of cedar?
Right.
No. Do you think if I wanted a house out of cedar that I either would have told you to build me one or that I would have built one for myself? And by the way, I would prefer not to build one for myself because if you make a contribution to it, then we're working together and that's really more fun, isn't it? But anyway, so that's what you're saying. To say, did I tell you to remodel my home? That's pretty funny. Gotcha. So the passage I just read is not a case of bygones being bygones, because this man represents Yahweh rather than Satan. He is Sadak, right? He is afforded Yahweh's protection because he, as the Adam of Parah on Towrah, will restore the remnant of Yisrael. And it was masculine singular in this case. They will not only have been brought back to Jerusalem, this would be the mortal remnant of Yisrael, and gathered around the Temple Mount on Moriah. They're going to be allowed into God's protective garden on Sukkah. So there's a lot of insights here as to what's going to happen. And they're going to live thereafter over the next 1,000 years and have the opportunity to earn God's trust. And we're going to do our best job to set a good example like Dode, and to teach them like Dode. So we're going to, a lot's going to be us over the next 1,000 years. If you're looking for a sabbatical and a break, I think we'll have one here and there, and I think we'll be able to sneak off and take some long weekends. But that's our job over the next 1,000 years, to set a good example and to be good teachers. Now, fortunately for us, time will move differently for us than it does for the rest of the earthlings, in the sense that we will have made that transition so that we can be energy-based beings, and are an energy-based being. If you wanted to sneak away for a decade, you could do it over a second of Earth time.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it's going to work out. So you could sneak in a vacation anywhere you want, and no one would even know that you've taken the time off. So it's going to be a pretty neat experience. And we're going to have so much fun teaching and transforming lives that's going to be more fun than anything else anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No need for a vacation when you're doing what you love. It's not work.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So it's going to be really exciting what we have the opportunity to do. I had a friend that wrote too that since Yahweh is bringing the Goyim in, and just a very select few Goyim whose attitude and aptitudes are perfect for this environment, and he's bringing them as the workers. And the Hebrew word is that is typically translated as slaves. But keep in mind that the Hebrew word for slave and the Hebrew word for work, the same word. Mm-hmm. And that everyone that is part of Yisrael, that's brought into this 1,000-year expression of Eden, is going to be working. If you're not working, you're not going to be there. So we're all going to be working, and those who work for Yisrael of the Goyim are going to be working for really nice people and a perfect environment. So that part will be quite nice. And in addition to that, why would we expect Yahweh to do anything different than his Yobel? And what happens during the Yobel?
The Ebed are freed. Yeah.
Freed. So 50 years into 1,000, you're probably going to have that opportunity. Plus the fact I'm certain that, knowing Yahweh, the opportunity to, while working during that time, to learn what it takes to be part of the covenant will be available to the Goyim, just as it has been to the Israelites. So, and as I told my friend when he brought this up, I said, have you considered what the alternative would be for those Goyim at this time, when all of the religious and political are purged, so that God can eliminated, purged by that kind of wiped away, their lives ended, while he allows his mortal remnant of Israel into the garden. So their alternative would be
death.
Non-existence. Yeah, non-existence. So what percentage of the people that are given the opportunity to be workers, even if they have very few options as to whether or not they're going to work or not. In fact, if they don't have the right aptitude and attitude, they won't even be there. But what percentage of them would say, no, I think I'd rather be dead than have this opportunity to work in paradise for the nicest people now that are going to exist in the history of mankind?
0.
Yeah, come on, let's be real. No.
Oh, hey, is there going to be air conditioning? I won't go if there's not air conditioning, right?
Well, they call that a trade wind in paradise. That and a ceiling fan will do you. And Yahweh does make a point about this too that is worth considering for the Goyim. Goy have, for the most part, harassed God's people for the past 3,000 years. And there have been very, very few Goy that have been positive to God's people. The overwhelming preponderance have been exceedingly harsh. It's because of the Goyish religions of Christianity and Islam that the Holocaust happened. And so God is saying, I'm going to have just some accountability for all of that. And the accountability is you're going to go into this if you have the right attitude and aptitude as the workers. And there has to be that role reversal for a while because the Goy enslaved Jews for more than a longer period of time than any other nationality has ever been enslaved. The Jews have been enslaved far longer than any other people. They've been deprived of their rights far longer. And so God says, just recompense. I want to do turnaround. And you don't like it, then you don't have to participate. When I first read it, I say, I'm not really comfortable with that. I prefer that to be the case. And then when you think about it, say, well, that's a pretty nice option considering the alternative. Here's all the positives associated with that. But it really gets right down to the nitty gritty on all of this. It's God's home. It's his universe. He gets to make the rules. And he'll have to be consistent on his rules. But once he makes the rules, that's it. None of us, even if we were to take a vote and the vote was 10 to 1, if we're voting against God, it doesn't
work.
It's just not in our I have never opposed God where I found out that was really a good call. Yep, Craig,
right.
You really nailed it there. You won that argument against God. You're going, It's stupid. So if you don't like something that God said, well, maybe you need to adjust your mindset, or maybe you don't belong with him.
Yeah. And throughout the Torah, he's not opposed. We were having this conversation the other day, not opposed to slavery. Okay. He's not saying this is something that, hey, I'm okay with it because it happens in the material realm, blah, blah, because he gives, like you said, the Yobel. If a slave wants to stay at his master's house, the all through the ear, the doorpost, giving him the option to, hey, I like this guy. It's better than any other option I'd have. I want to maintain this relationship, so he understands that's better than death, Yeah,
I'm an Ebed of Yahweh. I'm an Ebed of Dod. I'm happy to continue to be an Ebed of Yahweh and Dod. Works just fine for me.
I've been a servant my entire life. I mean, hotel industry. It takes a lot to serve. You got to be pretty smart, otherwise you're not good at service.
Right. So I think it's an excellent point. What God is saying is you can't mistreat somebody who is in that rung of life and that you have power over. And you can't rape them, you can't mistreat them, and that there has to be an opportunity for them to earn their freedom. And that's why he imposed the Yobel. And every 50 years, all slaves are freed. Now, if they say, I want to continue to work in your house, I like this. This is, you're fun to be around and you treat me nicely and I like this job, so I like to continue. Then that's fine. You have that opportunity. But now you're continuing free. You're making that choice. And God also realized he's dealing with humankind. There was not a single civilization of any consequence throughout all of history that didn't impose a caste system, and slaves were the bottom rung of the caste system. And the realization is that if there wasn't slavery, including the blacks that were brought to the New World, if not for slavery, they would have been dead.
And they'd kill them.
Yes.
That's just the bottom line. So it gets right back to Yahweh's proposition for populating the return to Eden with the Goyim. If you're not here to work, you'd be dead. So I happen to dislike slavery as an institution. I don't like servants. I'm not comfortable around them. I'd prefer to work myself. I'd prefer to serve than be served. I've always preferred that. Even as the CEO of public companies, I felt that I had to set the example and work harder than anybody else. And I felt that I had a responsibility to serve the people who were working for me and also my customers. and that's the attitude that I've always had. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But God's realized that that has been 100% of human civilization. And so his advice had to work within the realm of humanity. And so he just set different standards. He said, can't cheat them, can't abuse them, can't hurt them, can't rape them. And you have to eventually free them. Recognizing that if there were not slaves, they would all be dead. And that ultimately working for somebody has value. So there's going to be a mortal remnant that's brought back to Moriah around the Temple Mount. They're going to be allowed into God's protective enclosure of this earth for 1,000 years on Sukkah. And this will all be in concert with his chosen implements and those associated with him. So I'm inspired to conclude Yahweh's assessment, which we have done now, of the conflict that he foresaw 2,700 years ago between his tzedakah, which is the one who is correct, his nakar, his observant foreigner, and the adversary Zanan, demonic woman, and the Zana, despicable whore, concurrent with the Shabuah Katsir. God said that's the dividing point. That's the point of conflict, which is where the tzedakah and nakar remove a group of devoted covenant members, and they go off to Shamuw'el, and those who thought that this harvest was for them and was theirs are not going to be left behind, but they're going to wonder why they were left behind. And that's the dividing line. And then God goes off and says, well, it's because the woman leading that group is demonic, and she's a great betrayer, and she's despicable. So, well, I've shared my thoughts along the way quietly, and from the beginning, I've been struggling to determine why such an insignificant coterie of imbecilic contrarians would garner the most comprehensive and condemning rebuke that's found anywhere in the prophets. You know that this rebuke that God has of those who thought they could claim the Shavuot harvest as theirs while changing Yahweh's name and besmirching the tree of knowledge and condemning the Choder and Yahweh's Nakar and the covenant family. Do you know why? Well, first, do you know that it is the longest, yes, most vitriolic attack God ever brings against any group of people?
Yes.
Ever in the Torah and prophets? It's the only time where he specifically says, I'm sending your souls to Sheol, hell.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to wonder why, because in my view is that whole group is comprised of people who are so pathetically lost that they aren't the value of navel length. That this is a group that doesn't, other than to say, well, that slander is untrue, and I'm going to protect the value of these 35 books that I've written for Yahweh, and I'm going to protect the Yahweh blog, and protect the covenant family, and protect my wife and my credibility from their attack. Other than doing that, when they just get so vicious, you have to respond.
Yeah.
I'd prefer just to ignore them because they're not smart enough to debate. When they make a claim and you go and say, well, what you just claimed and the passages that you quoted actually prove the opposite of what you're claiming. And they can't learn, they can't process that, they can't admit, well, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. That was obviously wrong. And we've done that every time they have brought their proof statement of their argument. And so I wonder, why would God pick them? Why would he take this opportunity to be so condemning in this rebuke?
Craig, we made a comment. I think we've gone over this, fellas and Leah, that to interfere and get in the way of Nakar is to get in the way with my lesser luminary, who is also my son, is to get in the way of my greater luminary, who's my firstborn, is to get in the way of what I have ordained and want.
Right.
And
yeah, I think it's true. I think that because God set this up such that he realized that for the last 2,500 years, there wouldn't be a single person that would listen to him or understand the proper pronunciation of his name, or what he and his son achieved as co-workers fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. They wouldn't understand the terms and conditions of the covenant. They wouldn't understand the purpose of the Moed Mikre. They would have no concept of the timing of the fulfillment of the final four and what they each represented. And therefore, there was no chance whatsoever that God was going to be able to fulfill Shavuot, Towrah, Kippurim, or Sukkah. And therefore, Dod could not return as king because there was no one to return to. And there would be no reason to restore the earth to conditions of Eden because there was no one to live in it. And had we not collaborated on this, and had he not foreseen that that was going to be needed, then it was all for naught. The human experience would end just like it ended in Eden. No one goes forward.
It's embarrassing as a Yehud that most Yehudim don't even know what Asher is, where it's located, what it means, and the rabbis have it all screwed up. They don't even know it's the basis of, God's name.
Yes. Yeah, they have no idea
why
God said, I am whom for the basis, the benefit of the relationship I am. Ihaya, Asher, Ihaya, tell the children of Israel that Yahweh has sent you. That is my one and only name for all time. And they no concept of what that means, or why God said it that way, or how Haya defines God's existence, or how it tells us how to pronounce his name. And the only letter that isn't defined with the proper pronunciation beyond Haya in Yahweh's name is the Wa. And what is the verb? There's one verb in Dod. It's the Wa. That's why they were named Yahud, which is a compound of Yahweh's name and Dod's name.
Mm-hmm.
God made it as straightforward and as easy as it could possibly be, but they missed it all. So, why was God's attack so specific? Why was it so antagonistic? What had this mother goddess done, or what would she do, that would deserve a confirmed ticket to Sheol? Never, ever. I mean, God didn't even expressly say to Miriam or to Chawa or to Michael, who were all prototypes for her, that you're going to Sheol. But he said that of this woman and her ilk. Now, there are a number of potential answers. One stands out above the others. Previously, I shared that the Anan picked Yahweh's chosen implement as time is running out, aggravating his plans to restore his relationship with people right in the immediate advance of his return. And God is extremely protective of, even proud of, his choder. I may not be the greatest guy in the world, but I really devoted myself to this cause. And I think that's all really God was asking for. He wasn't asking for perfection. He was saying, are you willing to go through this whole process with me? You're willing, when you're knocked down, to get back up. Can I rely on you? Are you going to be observant, and are you going to engage and get this done with me? And the very fact is that 100,000 hours of devotion goes a long way with God.
Yeah, I would think.
Tag you're it, n equals 1, case closed.
Yeah, it's there's upwards of 1,000 prophecies pertaining to this, and God's not going to spend that much time talking about it if it's not important. So Yahweh and Yada are inseparable. That's what God has laid out. He has told us that in the Isaiah 56 that we are inseparable. We are a team. And God always works through people, and this is the person he chose to work with. You can say, I don't think he should have chosen Dod. You could say, I don't think he should have chosen me. I don't have any problem with that. I don't think he should have chosen me either. But the fact is he did. And the fact is it's undeniable that he did. And so who are we to say, well, he made a mistake? Maybe he did, but he's all in. And so I understand the reasons now why he made that decision. And, I think we've done a pretty decent job of living up to those expectations.
And he's been pretty consistent. Pretty consistent. I can't think of one Nabi. I can't think of anybody that's worked with Yah that hasn't been chesed, that hasn't been Gabor that hasn't been. They knew themselves, confident.
Confident.
And that turns people off. People,
Yeah.
The religious
to be
want somebody
exceeding-
that's nice and warm and no. Yirmayah was not like that. Yeah, Yashiyah was not.
Yashiyah was
Eliah
not
definitely
like
was.
No.
Zechariah was
It
not
just-
like that. None of them were like that.
Yeah.
They were all very bold, uncompromising people with overwhelming confidence and conviction.
Yes, Yah's way, or it's the pit. It's off with you. Yeah.
I have read all of them, and a common denominator among all of them is they were bright fellows.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all articulate. They all had a very substantial vocabulary. They made connections between things so that God could say something. And then they would say, oh, yeah, that makes sense because you said this over here and this now, and these things fit together. And now I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So they all copped an attitude. They were all a little sarcastic. They all had tremendous personalities, passion for the work. And there's not a single one of them that gave up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They got time, times got tough, but Moshe wanted to give up. Dode wanted to give up, but they saw it through. They got back up when they fell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gabor, Chazak, Chachma, Bien. I mean, this is
It's
the
that whole
recipe.
list that Yahweh has of the Towrah in Yashayah 11. It's that list plus the added strength of Chachma, which he says constantly that those who represent him are Chachma, bold, blunt, uncompromising, resolute, have conviction and confidence in what they do. Why would you not? I mean, you work with God. I don't know how you would not have confidence. But confidence drives the people who are insecure crazy. It just
Yes.
That's the ultimate needle in their side. They're drawn to people of confidence because that's the thing they crave because they're insecure. And yet when they're exposed to it, they despise it because they don't have it. And that's why they become so vicious. That's what happened with this mother goddess cult.
Well, I think it's kind of a delicious irony that one of the other titles that you have is, the rod of divine justice. So you'll get to have, they will get their comeuppance.
Well, in the case of this particular group, I don't even have to make that determination. It's already been made.
Don't you think? You think that's why?
Yes. No, listen, I would make that determination because for no other reason than I love my wife. She did not deserve to be treated as they did. They were vicious towards her. And I would be totally unfair. As dedicated as my wife has been to Yahweh and to the Torah and to the covenant family, to have her have to endure an eternity with people who treated her this viciously. And so I would exclude them for that reason. But Yahweh has gone far beyond excluding them. So Yahweh also told us clearly that he gave his 7 Ruach to the Towrah, and there's no one else in the history of humanity that fits that role. And that role is of a man, absolutely unequivocally. And that man is the tree of knowledge according to Yahweh. He is a Gabor, which means he is a very strong and bold individual, a man. So the Towrah can't be anybody else. Now, previously, I surmised that the seductive whore earned this rebuke because she misrepresented Yahweh's nature and his name, which she did. Not only creating a mother god and then presenting them as hermaphrodites. God turns out God's not in favor of transgender, particularly as it's going to be for himself. Equally condemning, she and her ilk have denied Dode's fulfillment of Chag Matzah. They said he could not have fulfilled Passover. Not only untrue, but it's deadly, which is grounds in itself for eternal banishment. It's one thing to not know what you're talking about and be misled. It's another thing to know the truth and to deny it. Also, after disparaging my wife, this individual claimed to speak for God. This is very much like Miriam, and God's already set the precedent for that. You do that, and you are forever divorced from God. You are akin to having leprosy. And God's response to Miriam was vicious. He says, it's like your father spit in your face. You have somebody come down with leprosy and you send them outside of the community, and then you dress them down by saying, it's as if your father spit in your face. That God's really upset. And this was worse than what Miriam did, because Miriam said that she spoke for God and never actually said anything against Moshe, just his wife, and wanted to make the claim. And this woman went way, 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 way beyond that in all possible ways. So that would have been, so for God to be consistent, he has to deal with this. And God drew a vicious and graphic response to Miriam. That's one of the things that's hated in Rabbinic Judaism. Rabbinic Judaism, they condemn God for overreacting to Miriam. They say that Miriam was right in criticizing Moshe because Moshe's wife was not Jewish. Now, God never mentioned her accusation of the wife because that was prophetic for what we would endure. It had nothing to do with that argument. What God responded to is she claimed that she too spoke for God, and God says, no, if you speak for me, you know it. And everybody knows it because I make it really clear who is speaking for me, and it's quite a responsibility to speak for me. So don't pretend to do that. This was God's response to that, and the rabbis have a conniption fit and say that God grossly overreacted and was completely unfair to Miriam, and they view Miriam almost as a saint, maybe as a saint. And
the only woman they come to defend. The only woman rabbis will come to defend is Miriam. Yeah. Because
they defend her, and they defend Rachel too. They hate Leah, who is the mother of Yehuda. They defend Rachel, who was the one that hid the idols and was so embittered. She's the one who died delivering Benjamin. Who she called One, distressful and miserable. Mm-hmm. So they're on the wrong side of everything. The rabbis are. They despise God. That's why they erased his name. So also, after disparaging my wife, as I say, this individual claimed to speak for God, and God said, no, you don't. And she would even follow in Chawah's footsteps, replicating her selfish misappropriation of Yahweh's instructions to impose herself as a goddess. And since there is no voice of a mother god anywhere to be found in the Torah and prophets, she is the voice of her mother goddess. They're one and the same. The Zana tried to steal the next ingathering, Shamuw'el, for herself, claiming that Yahweh's Zeroah, one cultivating the harvest, was actually killing those, which is what they said, that he is actually serving, thereby potentially precluding thousands from capitalizing upon God's generosity through her confabulations. That's deadly from God's point of view. He says, no, my Zeroah is cultivating the harvest. And they said, nope, he's not. He's killing everybody. That's slander that hits right to the heart of what God's trying to accomplish. On another occasion, I revealed that God is particularly irritated when those who have been given access to the truth return the favor by rebelling against him and his testimony, becoming naysayers, because that's an insider rebellion. Mm-hmm. That's why God was so frustrated with the Jews. They were given access to the truth and they turned against God. And then they spoke for themselves and claimed that they were revealing a Torah when it's their rabbinic arguments in the Talmud. So that is the thing that God dislikes the most. And there is also the issue of fracturing the family and breaking the covenant, something that Yahweh will not tolerate. That's a horrible thing that you can do, and that God constantly says that his children, Yisrael, broke the covenant with him. That's why he divorced them. But in the end, I think it all comes down to this. Yahweh didn't want any of them in his covenant family. That's the harshest thing I could possibly say, but that's the only conclusion that I can draw. He didn't want them in his covenant family. And the reason he didn't want them in his covenant family is because he didn't trust them.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And the reason he didn't trust them is for good reason, because they proved not to be trustworthy. So since I had shown them the way, he resolved the problem. And this is the thing I've always asked of God. I said, I'm writing all of these books to tell people exactly who you are and what they need to do to be part of your covenant family and live forever. God, what if there are people who read these books and act upon the instructions that you have given, that I have now explained and shared, who become part of the covenant, who don't belong? Am I responsible for that? Because I don't want to make it too easy. I want to make certain that it's hard, that people really have to work at it. I really want them to have to read these books and to learn from them. And there's 35 of them. And I want them to have to go through this process for several reasons. One is, if I just gave you the answer, you wouldn't appreciate it. You certainly couldn't understand it. And all you would do is be going through the motions because you wanted what God was offering. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the answer. God's not looking for somebody who's going to be a dependent, who is just trying to do whatever the minimum thing is, that doesn't understand any of it. That's not what he's looking for. So I was always, I think I've said this 1,000 times, I've always been more concerned about telling too much information, giving too much away, than I've ever been on the opposite side, for fear that there's somebody allowed into eternity that pesters God. And this is God's way of saying, not to worry about it. I got you covered.
About the mitzvah, when you wrote about the mitzvah on the shows, and you said, guys, maybe this is too easy. It's kind of like Billy Graham's 5 steps.
Yeah. There's 5 conditions of the covenant. It's just straightforward. They're all benefits of the individual doing it. And their benefits are provided through the first 3 Moed Mikre. That's a really simple concept to grasp, particularly once you understand how those first 3 Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, were delivered by Dod, and what each of those represent relative to the benefits of the covenant, and how we achieve them by accepting the 5 conditions of the covenant. And I kept on saying, oh my God, I'm hoping here that I didn't make this too easy. And God said, no, not a problem. Not a problem. I got you
Craig, it's in a way, Yah saying, my Yeladim, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is. This the family, and that's one of the things we learned from Eden, is that just because you were on the inside doesn't mean you stay on the inside, right?
Yeah.
You can be expelled if you prove yourself not to be reliable. And that's what God is looking for on all of us. Not looking for us to be perfect. Just that if we make a mistake, we own it and learn from it. And if we trip and fall, we get back up and get going. I've gotten mad at God a couple of times. Once I shared on a program here not long ago, and I know it was bothered you, Kirk, that I expressed it didn't bother you in the sense that I endured a matter of frustration with Yahowah, but that just enduring that alone, it was, as a brother, you're saying, I wish I had been there to help. And I got frustrated because this insider rebellion became so vicious toward me and my wife. And I was saying, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, I've been really, really steadfast and helpful in everything you've ever asked, and I'm going to continue to do so. But I didn't. You didn't need to do this to me. Why are you in allowing this to happen? And I got frustrated. I had my brief Moshe moment. I didn't say kill me, but I did say these people are impossible, and you've given me an impossible job here, and now you're making it more difficult. And God, I've only got one thing I can offer here, which is credibility, and that is the currency of doing this job. And they're trying to destroy it as former insiders, and this is just not reasonable that you would allow this to happen. And then we kind of talked it through a bit, and he says, why do you think I asked Hosha to marry a religious whore? It's important that you have this full empathy of what I am enduring with my people. They fractured the relationship with me. You need to know what a fractured family is really like. Otherwise, you have no empathy. You're not capable of doing this with both head and heart unless this happens. And, Moshe cratered under this. Dode had the family rebellion, and he cratered under it. I need you to prove that you won't.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
as my wife would say, "Suck it up, Buttercup." Put on your big boy pants and keep going. This stuff happens, and you need to now demonstrate that it's something you will rise above. And I think that's important to God, is to prove that doesn't matter what you bring against him. He's my guy, and he's going to be resolute. He's going to prove that he's Chazak. And so I think that's part of it. And then God said, oh, by the way, I do have your back here. I have released these prophecies, and you're going to find them. And as you find them and share them, you'll find that I've got your back. And it's all going to work out just fine. So I think that was part of it. But still, it is, occasionally in a relationship that's been this long, this close, this productive, you're going to have moments you say, okay, God, I think you pushed the envelope here. This is right now bordering on allowing hostility to impede my family. This is right next to that which where you are not going to allow. And he says, no, I didn't do that. They're not part of your family.
They never were.
They never were. And so I have to have this filter. They were not trustworthy. If you can be confused after all that I taught them by a psychopath that is this disingenuous and this unintelligent and pursuing this kind of stupidity, then you can't be trusted. And that's what he wanted to demonstrate. So, since I had shown them the way, he resolved the problem by letting them remove themselves from heaven. Then, to be certain they would never return, and so there would be no confusion, God inspired this particular prophecy that we have gone over, pursuant to the Shamuw'el harvest, because that's where the line was drawn in the sand. That was really the dividing point in all of this, knowing that we'd find it and we'd share it with you. And even finding this prophecy, I've shared on previous programs, I've shared with Rich. I knew that there was a place in Yasha'yah that talked about people disappearing as part of an ingathering, and of the world not knowing where they went. But gosh, you got to have written 25,000 pages of translations. It's pretty hard to have a little file and say, okay, that was in Yasha'yah 57, 1 and 2. Yeah, I'll go right there and pick up my translation. We'll go from there. I knew it was in Yasha'yah, but I Googled it every which possible way with every possible AI search engine to say, where does it say that people are going to disappear and nobody knows what happens to them? And every time they came back with, doesn't say that anywhere. Okay, so let me go and let me read. It must not be very clear in English translations, but let me go back and read Yasha'yah again, and we'll got to find this. And it took better part of half a day to find it. And then when I found it, I said, okay, now that I found it, I'm going to do what I have always done. I'm going to start a chapter in advance of it, and I'm going to go a chapter after it, because in context, that's when the lessons happen. And we've developed 10,000 unique insights about God and learned what he is trying to achieve by doing it that way, by never citing anything out of context and never allowing any translation or any insight to be to become a monolith. Always willing to improve them, to grow, to learn, and then to share what we're learning. I think that's one of the big reasons that Yahowah wanted us to go to the Yahowah blog. If we're learning so much so fast that if we were to go back and enhance all the books with everything we're learning over the last 6 months, oh my God, it'd be like a one-man show trying to repaint the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, you'd never get it done, and the marginal utility would be nil. So this is a way that we can learn on the fly and share the moment we discover something new. Yeah. So that's what we have.
Expeditiously, you're going where the words lead, which is what you've done.
Yahowah knew we'd find the prophecy. He knew that it was exacting, that we're in a position to understand it, that we would share it. and that this would be his answer. He knew it, and we did. And so let it be known, the Zana, is Sheol bound, and she will be taking her malignant malcontents with her. That is God's final statement on the matter. They will not be included in the Shabuah Katsir, nor among those who will enter Eden during Sukkah. Fair is fair. And boy, every one of them, I pleaded with them. I said, don't do this to yourself. I know where this is leading. Don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to those you love that rely on you. This is a horrible life decision. And all they did was snap back. How dare you say that we're making a decision that could put their soul at risk? And when it comes to interpreting the will of Yahweh, after 24 years, I've gotten pretty good at it. And it was obvious what they were doing, and God's now confirmed it. So with so much at stake, and with this being the pivotal point in history where those seeking a relationship with Yahweh are forever separated from those who choose to be religious, Yahweh sending his people a herald, someone to blow his shofar, someone to serve as a witness at this time. And so this is what God says. Then he will say to the one making the announcement. He introduced all of this by saying he has a tzedakah, a man who is right, and that he is the hanakar, the observant foreigner. And now he's saying that he will make this pronouncement. And this is what he'll say. You should choose to value and highly regard your decision to pay attention and to turn around, to prepare and make ready the elevated path to be raised up and lifted on high, choosing to be empowered and enriched by removing obstacles and stumbling blocks from my people's way. Now, it's a very famous statement in Yeshaya, I think the 41st chapter, that where God speaks of the voice calling out in the wilderness to remove the obstacles and prepare a raised highway from our world to God's. And that voice that calls out is his nakar, his choder, his observant foreigner, the person that he has chosen to declare this message at this time, the very person speaking for God. And here he is recounting that, because this is now the 57th chapter. And so Yahweh is saying, yes, he will say, as the one making the announcement, he is going to Amar. You should choose to value and highly regard. This is your choice. It was presented in the imperative mood, so it's your choice, but he says you should choose. In fact, he has his nakar is making the statement. He is encouraging people to choose to value and highly regard. Your decision, free will and all, to pay attention and to turn around and prepare to make ready, panah, this elevated path, this raised highway, to be raised up and lifted on high, choosing to be empowered and enriched by removing the obstacles and the stumbling blocks. The only way that you can be raised on high in the next 1,000 years is to accept what Dod did during the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and thereby be part of the upcoming Shabuah harvest or the final Teruah gleaning, because everybody else is a mortal remnant. They're not lifted up on high. They're given an opportunity to end up in that position. But you cannot be lifted up on high unless you're one of those who capitalizes upon the Shabuah harvest or the Teruah gleaning, but you cannot capitalize on them until you understand specifically who Yahweh is, what he's offering, what he's expecting in return, how to meet the 5 conditions of the covenant, and realize that the benefits are delivered through the Moed Mikre that Dod David himself fulfilled. Unless you understand that and capitalize upon it, you cannot be part of the Shavuot harvest. The Shavuot harvest is a Bikurim harvest. It's the result of Bikurim, which is the result of Dod fulfilling Pesach and Matzah. So you have to choose this, and As part of Bakurim, there's a tenfold increase of empowerment and enrichment. As part of Shabuah, there's a doubling of the tenfold increase. So you've got tenfold to the 10th power and a doubling of that. This is what Shabuah is offering. It is the full extreme of room here and what God is saying. And that's the only way to be part of that is Shabuah. And what God says, I want you to remove the stumbling blocks. Well, this is what he has done by excoriating them and identifying them in the first half of Yeshaya 57. And he wants us to do that. Follow his example. Remove the stumbling blocks, the impediments. What is the number one impediment to knowing God? Religion. What's the number two? Politics. Number three is conspiracy.
Yeah.
We are asked to remove those stumbling blocks. Now, a stumbling block is not something that you would trip over if you were crawling or on your knees, bow down in prayer, is it?
No. Yeah.
So this is a raised highway. And the stumbling blocks on the raised highway means that the people that are going to be benefiting from it are walking. And God doesn't want them tripped up on the way. Get rid of the stumbling blocks. Clear religion and politics from the approach to Yahweh through the covenant, the bereth, through the moedim, the restoring witnesses to the internal testimony. Get them out of my people's way. So you need to excoriate Christianity, which is the number one stumbling block, Judaism, the number two stumbling block, and Islam, as well as conspiracy. They all have to be cleared out of the way. So Yahweh is disclosing this about his Nakar, who will be making this announcement, who is making this announcement. After all, he is known for being Tzedakah, right, about the events now unfolding in Jerusalem. So this is reminiscent of Yeshaya, Isaiah 43. So I said 41 earlier, I meant 43, revealing that the voice representing God will call out to those who are gathered in the last days, encouraging them to build a raised highway to heaven, which is through the remaining Mikre, the Moedim. And remove the stumbling blocks, which means remove all traces of religion and politics. But there may be something slightly different, I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, no, Craig, this harkens right back to Mikael.
Yeah.
I see a connection there. Correct me if I'm incorrect.
Yeah. No, I see it too. Mikael and Daniel, there are two prophets, and I think a third is implied. I think Eliah is the third that's implied. Two of the prophets are named, and they are both men who are miraculously brought before Daniel, who serves as a scribe, not as a prophet. One of them is exceedingly famous, although I was the first to properly identify him. His name is Gabriel. Gabriel means God's most courageous and compassionate, capable man. Gabriel, according to Yahweh, is Dod. But the one who is explaining Dod's testimony so that other people can appreciate it, who is assigned the responsibility of unveiling it, of explaining it to the world, is another man, and his name is Mikael. And Mikael is the one who is right about God. And so I do think that, yes, there is a correlation there, that Gabriel Dod and Mikael Yada are both in roles, prophetic roles at this point. Now, Mikael's is not so much providing prophecy as he is explaining the prophecy that Gabriel is provided, but I'm not sure there's much of a real difference there, because if you don't understand the prophecy, it doesn't do you much good, does it? No. But that's the role of the two. That's why in Bamidbar, Numbers, 11, when Moshe gives up and says, I can't do this anymore, God says, well, I got a couple of guys. They'll take it from here. You get them to the promised land, he'll get them home. And they are Eldod, God's beloved, which is Dod, and my Dod, the same prefix as you'll find in Mikael. And both of them are spirit-filled, and they're prophets. They're speaking the message of God. So we've had a long history together. So as we consider this, what God is saying is that there is the possibility that Yahweh is addressing here the Nakar, which I think he is, and he is saying, it could even be that he's saying this about him, then at the same time that God would be declaring that the Nakar will be the one encouraging others to act and preparing this raised highway to heaven. So there's two ways to interpret it. One is that God is saying, prepare this and make this decision, or that he is announcing that his Nakar is going to do it. And it's just, Yahweh made it really clear back in early in the Torah, early during the Exodus, when he came out of Choreb and spoke directly to his people, and they said, shut up and go away. We never want to hear from you or see you again. And he said, okay, that's fine. I'll play by those rules. I don't really like being around you either. So he chose to speak through people, and that's what he's done ever since. So if God's going to speak to his people, it's going to be through someone. There's a reason that ultimately Dode is called Elion. The very influence of God in our presence is because God likes working through people. Now, when we are out and exploring the universe together, I think there's going to be very little, if any, hierarchy, and we're just all going to have a great time. And God will speak directly to us, and we'll communicate directly with him. But while we're on the earth and doing our jobs on the earth, God speaks through Dode, and then we speak and communicate on behalf of Dode. That's the hierarchy. That's our job. That's the way God works, and it's the way he's going to continue to work. When God restores the earth to the conditions of Eden, he still can't live here with us. He can have, project an aspect of his nature that can camp out with us, but for the most part, he can't. A seven-dimensional being can't exist in a three-dimensional realm, and so we can go visit him in Shamuw'el if we're covenant members, but the mortal remnant can't. And so the mortal remnant is going to know God through Dode. That's why Dode's called Elion. It's pretty clear. I mean, it's pretty hard to speak against Dode when Yahweh says he's coming back as king with him, and that when he does, his throne's going to be as brilliant as the sun. And oh, by the way, he's Elion, which would mean he is the influence of Almighty God and all things pertaining to it. That's what the own ending is, and El means God. I don't think I'd want to argue with that.
No, makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah,
you're the right hand. You're the right hand of Dode, as Dode is the right hand of Yah. And let me ask you this: are both of your interpretations and translations mutually exclusive of each other? What you just described in 57. Can it be both?
Yahweh making the pronouncement and Yahweh speaking through the Nakar to make the pronouncement. Well, since the Nakar is the Kol voice of Yahweh, there's really a pretty thin line between those two interpretations. I'm not sure it matters much, other than Yahweh likes to work through people. We're splitting hairs probably even to bring up the point, but that has always been my view, is that Yahweh preferred to work through people. He prefers to share credit. This is his style. I happen to like his style, but I understand his style too. He created the universe so he could work through us, to work with us, to continue to work with us. That's what Adam didn't provide. That's what Dode did provide. And so if he can speak through someone and work through someone, that's his overwhelming preference.
Okay.
So in this case, the Nakar is the one encouraging others to act, to prepare this raised highway to heaven. Now, what that means is that you fellas are the workers. You're the actors. Now, you're the ones who are building it.
Okay.
So that's what, if you interpret it as God is making the pronouncement that his Nakar is going to make this proclamation, and he's saying that you ought to choose to do this, then you're the ones doing it. That's pretty cool. That means you're doing something that God wants done.
Yeah.
And all of the choices you can make in life, and we have lots of them, there's no more gratifying, beneficial, rewarding decision than doing something God wants done.
Yeah, that was always been my thought coming off my island, so to speak, and coming into the world, was Yah put me in a very comfortable place, gave me time to learn, and it's like, now go do something with it.
Go do something with it. Yeah, we spent a lot of time learning together before we were sharing as we are now, and we've had a lot of practice sharing as well. But the Yahowah vlog is something that could not have existed 5 years ago. The time is now. This is the opportunity. We've learned. We're working together as a team. We're doing this, and we're delivering the results that God wants. Now, God doesn't have very high expectations, which makes it a lot easier to meet them. And He's happy with whatever we deliver is better than what He would have had otherwise, right? We may not be the best and the brightest of the world, but we are the best that He has encountered along the way. And it gets back to the idea that He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for interesting. He's looking for reliable, trustworthy, passionate, some people that rely on Him, trust Him, like to work with Him, enjoy His company. Yeah. Those attributes go a long way. Being reasonably bright and being devoted to the cause and reasonably articulate so that you're willing to come off our islands and to be out here in the open, expressing God's testimony. I mean, that's a real plus from His point of view. So He's saying that should we all choose to value making God more accessible, that our decision to pay attention at this time to look at life from God's perspective rather than from man's viewpoint, and then contribute to preparing the way that we are all serving God's interest. We're enriching, we're empowering His family, we're enabling His family. Collectively, we can remove the obstacles and impediments that have cluttered and concealed the path to God, which are religious. I mean, Christianity has done the best job of cluttering the path to God. Second to that would be Judaism, and then third, Islam. They've all done a marvelous job of being bad in terms of putting their trash right on top of the truth. So God wants His people to have unfettered access to Him, which requires us clearing all of the religious nonsense away. Those are the obstacles. So God is returning with His Son, our Savior, such that our work on Towrah makes that possible for God's people to come back home. So you can mark it on your calendar. The date is Yom Kippurim, the Day of Reconciliations in year 6000 Yaz. The sun sets on October 2nd, 2033. Therefore, the time remaining to capitalize on this announcement, to choose of your own volition, to cherish and honor God's way, and to do an about-face and prepare yourself for His appearance is short. And this is among the final notices to Yahweh's people, given to also approach their Messiah and enter the garden during Sukkah. This is heralding the last blast of the shofar. Join me in becoming part of the solution. Join us, removing the impediments, blocking the way to Yah, getting rid of religion, disavowing religion and politics. Clear the path home of every religious and political obstacle. If you contribute, you will live alongside the one who made this pronouncement 2,700 years ago. We have Yahweh's word on it. Wow. It always honors His promises. So now that Yahweh has buried the naysayers and has moved on to a solution, we find that the next prophetic declaration is challenging us to translate and then process what He has to say as thoughtful individuals. It is filled with descriptive titles presented in the participle and then the infinitive forms. Now, we've learned a lot about the participle and the infinitive here recently. We've always paid attention to the perfect and the imperfect. Hebrew is a unique language in that the verbs are established like light. They simply exist in time, in the fullness of time. There's no past, present, and future limitations on a Hebrew verb. And the perfect and the imperfect either say that the action is finite in time or unlimited in time. Something that is habitual and goes on with unfolding implications over time, or something that is one and done in the past, present, or future. perfect or imperfect. And we haven't paid quite as much attention to the participle form or the infinitive, but they're both very similar in this regard, in the sense that in the participle and the infinitive, God is using a verb as a noun. So if he's speaking, for example, the verb is yada, yada is a name and a noun in addition to actionable. So it's an actionable noun, a very descriptive term and title is the purpose of a participle or the infinitive. And really the difference between the participle and infinitive is the same as the perfect and the imperfect. The participle is a descriptive name, an actionable title that is doing something at a moment in time. And in the infinitive, it's like the imperfect, where the action has implications throughout time. But in both cases, if he's using the participle form or the infinitive form, you need to look at the verb as being an actionable noun, a very descriptive title, if you will. So it makes all of these statements verbal nouns. At issue initially is, since there are no quotation marks in Hebrew, and since a citation normally begins following Amar said, this would either have Yahweh addressing the one he has been referring to in the preceding statements, or the speaker is the Nakar, who is extolling God's intent at this time. Therefore, the room, one who raises, and Nasa carries away, Shakan, abiding and remaining as an ad, restoring witness, is either describing Yahweh, if the speaker is the Nakar, or God is lauding the contributions of his Nakar, if he is the speaker. You follow that? I mean, that's a fairly complicated thought, but depending on where you begin the quote, which I'm going to begin here following Amar, which is the answer and every other occasion. It's said, comma, in English, quote marks, begin the quote to the next sentence. So I'm going to take that approach. And if we take that approach, then what we're doing is that we have to decide when the quote begins and who is making the statement here. It doesn't change the fact. The facts are the same. But you have to either realize that God is saying his Nakar is going to do these things, and I'm proud of him because he's going to do these things, and he's proving that it can be done. Or he's saying that, I'm going to do these things, and the beneficiary is going to be the Nakar. So therefore, Yahweh is all of the things that he is. Nasa, he is Shakan, he is room, he is the one who raises, he is the one who carries away, he is the one who abides and remains, and he is clearly a restoring witness. So, all of these things apply to Yahweh. It would be out of character for Yahweh for him to present himself as such.
Right.
God likes to say, I'm reliable. If it comes to I'm reliable, you can trust me. But he doesn't refer to himself as I carry away. He doesn't refer to himself as I'm the one who raises. He doesn't say I'm the one who abides and remains. He doesn't refer to himself typically as a restoring witness.
Shaddai. He calls himself sufficient, right?
I love that. Yeah, I know. You're a man after my own heart. It was one of my favorite terms, just to show how cool God is, that the term that he used to describe himself is Shaddai, which means, I'm adequate.
Right.
I'll get it done. You can rely on me. What I'm offering is sufficient. It's just the coolest possible thing. He says of his sons that his son is essentially Almighty God. And he says of himself, I'm sufficient. I'm Shaddai.
Right.
I'm cool with that. That's really, it's one of my all-time favorite depictions. So if we were to think of this, God is, he is all of these things, and I would say it's out of character for him to laud himself. It's not the case with his coworkers. He loves to credit and praise others. See, God is the ultimate beneficiary of this concept that there's nothing that you can't achieve if you're willing to share credit. And God is not only willing to share credit, he loves to share credit. And he is just so excited when even a dum-dum like me figures something out and learns and shares it and benefits from it and have others benefit from it. And he says that is the thing that really trips his trigger. He just loves it and loves it so much that he is profuse in his praise of somebody that's just willing to do this, because so few people have.
Yeah.
It's a pretty low bar that we have to exceed to get his appreciation. But it's nice to see Dad doing that. You know, it's like a kid does something that's worthwhile in life, and a dad can't stop talking about it, right, with his son. So he likes to share credit. And there is no textual justification, by the way, for initiating this quote after telling us that his name is set apart and special. Moreover, God has been addressing his Nakar, not himself. And the last one to speak in the previous statement was the Nakar. So if this assessment of the Hebrew text is accurate, and I always throw it out. I mean, I'm going to say, I'm going to take, this is my analysis of it. I've been doing this for 24 years. I've thought it through, and I'm going to show you what the options are, and you can make your own decision. I don't think anybody's ever been that open and honest about a translation before, or the insights that can be derived from it. So I'm saying I'm going to tell you what I think it makes the most sense and explain it, and then you're free to make your own decision. So if my assessment of the Hebrew text is accurate up to this point, based upon the many previous statements I've translated, thousands of them, then there is still an additional challenge. We would normally think of any aspect of Yahweh's Ruach spirit being Shafal. Would you ever consider Yahweh's spirit being Shafal, lowly and demeaned?
No.
No. And yet it is used twice in this circumstance, that it speaks of the spirit being Shafal, demeaned. In both occurrences, the phrase is deployed in association with someone who is daka, slandered, and then brutally assassinated. Oh, this was one of the great treasures. We're now 2 hours and 15 minutes into this program, so we're gonna make our way through this statement because I think it's one of the great treasures. It's one of the tickled my soul beyond many that I have read. So I'm going to share it with you. This is a thinking man's analysis here, though. You really have to be on your game to understand it. But if you understand it, it explains why Yahweh allowed Dod to fulfill Pesach and Matzah, why he allowed Dod's body to be crucified by the Romans, and why he allowed Dod to go into Sheol with his soul to remove our guilt. And it explains why he has asked me to allow Hasatan to kill me on Teruah, bludgeon me to death on Teruah. It explains exactly how a loving father could allow that to happen. So this is really, I think, wonderful from that point of view. I had already sensed it to be true, but I didn't have proof until this moment. So it says that the Ruach spirit is the one who is demeaned, Shafal, and twice in this circumstance. In both cases, it says that the person he is speaking about is not only slandered, but they're brutally attacked and assassinated. But even then, that is further unusual, because the one who is crushed and killed is not only Chaya, restored to life, but he also renews life. So this is really an interesting set of circumstances. And what you've got here, of course, is Yahweh speaking through maybe the most brilliant orator in the history of the universe, and Yashayah. Yashayah's vocabulary is beyond any other prophet. He is the most brilliant mind through whom Yahweh communicated. And so you've got somebody who, you want to translate a chapter of Yashayah, you really better know your Hebrew, because he is the intellect of all intellect when it comes to being a prophet. So my initial conclusion in this context, especially in conjunction with the Nakar, who is Tzedakah, pursuing the harvest, is that he is acknowledging that Yahweh will raise and support his people through his efforts. We know that to be true. And even though he will be maligned and murdered, in spite of his character being besmirched and his body being bruised, then killed, he will still live. And through him, so will others. That's the whole purpose of the sacrifice of the Adam of Perah. Next, as for the proper treatment of Shafal Ruach, a deeply embedded spirit who is lowered to be spiritually abused and abased, demeaned and belittled, we find that this Shafal Ruach is then Chaya, revived and restored. So I see this as one of the 7 Ruach of Yahweh that he has given to his children, who will not depart from him, just as the spirit never departed from Dod. Even as his body is broken and bruised, crushed and slaughtered, the spirit will still be there, protecting his nefesh soul, his consciousness. The spirit of Yahweh will protect Yada's soul, just as he did Dod's soul. This is similar to how the Ruach never left Dod, protecting his nefesh soul so that he could endure the anguishing torture of crucifixion, followed by the crushing abuse of Sheol, and why his father allowed it. Because guess who took the abuse? Yahweh's Ruach.
Yahweh's Ruach.
What it proves is that Dod was willing to trust Yahweh to protect him in this way. And he endured it knowing that Yahweh would protect him. I volunteered to do this knowing that Yahweh would make a very good outcome as a result of it. And by this time, I'm going to be thrilled to get rid of my physical body and move on with a spirit of light anyway. Happy to get rid of it. Thank you. I'm glad you're able to do something good with it. So let's be on. But, you know, it's the idea of being, for that period of time, of being bludgeoned to death is all but one bone is broken, and you're just a bloody mass that is then part of a funeral pyre. You know, that part's not really appealing to me, but, you know, I'm saying that's what you want. That's what I'll do. Now God's explaining it. That's what he's doing. I'm explaining it. So in this way, the 2 men who offered to deliver the promised benefits of Pesach, Matzah, and Teruah, in collaboration with God, are protected by Yahweh through his Ruach, just as we would expect of a loving father. For the world watching these fulfillments of Passover and the Day of the Herald they'll be sufficiently brutal to grab everyone's attention, which they need to be, while God quietly but surely comforts and protects his chosen. I can share this, and it's still not going to change anybody's perception of that day, because all the people that were gathered that day didn't listen to us. Otherwise, they would have made the harvest, and they wouldn't be there on this day. So it's something I can know, the covenant family can know, my wife can know, all of which is reassuring to us. And it should be reassuring to everyone considering being part of the covenant family, that God would not allow someone that he deeply loves to endure this kind of thing. Excuse me 1 second. I want to turn off a flashing light. Oh, it's not that one.
That's it.
There we go. Okay. These little lights that we used when Leah was sitting here have a tendency to get hot, and then they go flash. They're not like the big studio lights that sit all around me here. So this is really reassuring. It's so dad of God to say, I got you, kid. Not to worry. I got you. So for the world watching, it's going to be gruesome. For those who know what the score is, we know that it's Yah taking the blows, and that we're implements that he's using in a powerful way to deliver this message. And he's demonstrating that it is possible for a man to trust him. And that's the beauty of the whole thing. So as such, it answers the question of why Yahweh would allow his son to endure crucifixion, followed by an excursion into hell. It is the Ruach who bears the blows, shielding the Nephesh souls who continue to live. It's not human sacrifice.
No.
The body. The body is bludgeoned and it's done, and the Nephesh soul, which all that matters, is protected. With
This is analogous, Craig. This is analogous in many ways to a version of Yoachag Matzah.
It is. It is absolutely analogous to matzah. Dod's soul going into Sheol, protected by Yahweh's spirit. And the more you understand all of these nuances, the more you understand that picture that Dod's soul carried our religious and political guilt into Sheol, which is the equivalent of a black hole, never to be seen again. But a black hole is a very fearsome thing. And it's the darkness and the pressure of all of that and the strain of all of it was all born by the Ruach. And Dod's responsibility is recognizing that he could do it and should do it, and that Yahweh would make a very good thing of it, and that Yahweh would protect him through it.
Yeah, well, it was the ultimate form of trust that Dod had for his dad. And it's the same ultimate form of trust for you. You are following the same lead. It's the analogy right there.
What it's saying is actually the individual doing this is not making a sacrifice.
Right.
But the individual doing this is trusting Yahweh to show it as a sacrifice for the benefit of his people. Wow. Yahweh is delivering what is, for all appearances, a sacrifice for the benefit of his people. But the individual making that choice, doing what God wants done, isn't making a sacrifice. What they're demonstrating is trust. They're trusting Yahweh to do as he has always done, even into a torturous death. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so with that lengthy introduction, excuse me, I don't normally go into that much of an introduction on something, but I want you to understand the parameters. So now here is God's declaration. For indeed, this is what he says. And so says now is where I'm putting the comma quotation mark. For indeed, this is what he says. And now I'm making he here the nakar, lowercase he. So I think this is what he claims and promises. This is third person, masculine, singular, and therefore it'd be addressing the nakar, the observant foreigner. Room. The one who raises and elevates, the one who lifts up to a lofty dimension on high. This is called participle, masculine, singular. So room is a descriptive title. Nasha, again, written as a descriptive, actionable title. The one who uplifts, supports, and carries away. Shakan, the one who abides and remains, also a participle. Ad, forever, as a restoring witness to the eternal testimony. His name is set apart and special. He dwells and remains in the heights of heaven, and he is set apart. In conjunction with Daka, the one who is slandered and crushed, killed, but remains alive. The one who is pressured and harmed, bruised and wounded, broken and turned to ash. Singular, masculine, descriptive. The deeply embedded spirit who is lowered to be spiritually abused and abased, demeaned and belittled, shafal, ruach. The depths of the spirit who is sent down to be abused and humiliated, masculine, singular, and feminine, singular. Will chawa, revive and restore life. Hiphil infinitive. The deeply embedded spirit who is lowered to be spiritually abused and abased, demeaned, and belittled. Will Chawa revive and restore life on behalf of the inclinations, motivations, and judgment of the Daka, of the one who will be slandered and crushed, killed, but remains alive. The one who will be pressured and harassed, bruised and wounded, broken and turned to ash. Nifl, participle, masculine, plural.
Is that Chawa or Chaya?
That last one is, well, the Daka is the one who is slandered and abused. The Leb conveys on behalf of the inclinations, motivations, and judgment. Chaya is Chayah, which means to revive and restore life.
Okay.
It's not Chawa, which means to make one's position known. No, it's Chaya. We're talking about restoring and maintaining life. The words are separated by one letter, the yod versus the wa. So this is the plural of, or the feminine of Che. Che would be life. The feminine of life, and they use feminine and masculine nouns, not designating a feminine or masculine individual, but instead of, one of the things I've learned is that when Yahweh turns a masculine noun into a feminine noun, Adam versus Adamah, Etz tree versus Etzah, which is counselor on the entire picture of what the tree of knowledge is providing. Gabora related to the spirit of Yahweh. Each time that he does that, Par, the bull, becoming Parah. It's not to designate that a man is becoming a woman or a bull is becoming a heifer. It actually expresses the fullness of the metaphor that he's using. That with the added H, you're not taking away from the masculinity, but you're adding an element of femininity in the sense of God perceives men as more rational and women as more emotional. But emotion, love and hate, for example, passion, emotions are really important. If you don't have the right emotions, you can't do this job. You must have empathy to do this job. But you've got to be cerebral or you're not going to pass muster with God, because you got to be right about him. You have to be thoughtful. And so when you add the ending, like to Chai and Chaya here, you're adding an added dimension to it. So this is the fullness of intellectual and emotional commitment to the process. Par versus Parah, Adam versus Adamah.
Thank you.
So that's quite a statement there. So while you're free to interpret these words differently, be aware that at this time, in this context, regarding this man who is working with Yahweh to restore his people, this rendering is as accurate as it is inspiring and reassuring. It depicts what will transpire on Yom Teruah, the day of the Herald, the Shabbat observance of September 23rd and 24th, 2033, in year 6000 Yah, to the backdrop of a full solar eclipse. This is descriptive of the sacrifice of the man from Edom, as the Adamah Parah, a bloody red man of the earth who is a productive bull, who is purging the mortal remnant of Yisrael of their guilt prior to Dod's return with Yahweh. So this is the final solution to Yahweh's Jewish problem, as his people return and come clean, becoming Yehudim again. The quarrel has lasted 34 centuries, and the time of contentiousness must end. Whether it is the accusatory goddess cult of the demonic woman, cantankerous rabbis, or argumentative Twistians, Yahweh has reached his limit. He will no longer entertain man's proposed changes and critiques. God is putting the world on notice that those who provoke him religiously or politically will not be rewarded with eternal life. Yahweh is furious, and for those enraging him, there will be no reward. So this known, the follow-on statement was a head scratcher initially. And this is because the Ruach spirit is a feminine noun, and the verb atzaf was spoken such that the subject is in the third person masculine singular. That means that the person is a man. Therefore, there are two entirely different ways to render the verb, either as to cover, to immerse, to clothe, and shroud, or to become faint, feeble, and fade away. Now, I chose the former because it's consistent with the profoundly important message of the foregoing prophecy regarding the Ruach being lowered and deeply embedded such that the spirit is abused and abased to protect the Nakar soul. And while his body will falter, the Ruach will absorb the blows to minimize the suffering. So this is how it reads. For indeed, it won't be much longer, and it certainly will not be for an unlimited duration, that I will quarrel and accept complaints, engaging in contentious debate. Low rib. And therefore, there will be no eternal life while I'm provoked and furious. Therefore, he will be covered within and immersed and clothed by the Spirit from before my appearance. I myself will act, and I will engage with this particular nesama, consciousness.
Oh, not Nefesh.
So, time is running out. Well, God has never been tolerant of the religious or overtly political. We are nearing the point when they will no longer be allowed to live on this planet. They have annoyed the Almighty far too long. The exacerbating reigns of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam will soon be over. If you are counted among them, save your complaints for hell's warden. God in one hero. And since nothing annoys God more than religion, and in particular those who either negate his son's contributions or slander the one who is bringing them to light, both Christians and the demonic woman's clan are in for a harsh awakening. There will be no salvation for any prospect of eternal life for those who provoke Yahweh. None. In all of human history, as troubling as it has been with mankind annoying God, the last 7 years will be more aggravating to God than the hurting these malcontents Yisraelites through the Exodus. And sadly for Yahweh, since he will be re-engaging at this time to garner the world's attention, he is not going to be able to look away, as his creation is systematically destroyed and his people are butchered by those in league with Satan. And so during the 7 years from the Shabuah Katsir through the Teruah Lakat, no one will be saved. No one will be saved. There will be some who turn to Yahweh before the arrival of the two witnesses based upon the library here at yadayah.com. And many more as the result of this message. But God isn't going to officially deliver their souls prior to the fulfillment of the fifth mikra. You can learn, you can capitalize, God's going to protect you, but you don't become immortal until the fulfillment of the fifth mikra, Teruah. 7 years where no one will be saved. Also, being among the mortal remnant, purged by the Adam of Parah and allowed into the garden on Sukkah, does not guarantee eternal life. I'm not Dod. Teruah is not Passover and Matzah. These souls will have to listen, learn, engage, and make a contribution to earn God's trust en route to becoming immortal. And that's for a very important reason. If you have benefited from Dod's sacrifice of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, you've studied it, you've made the choice, you understand the correlation between the covenant and the fulfillment of the Moedim. And you've had plenty of time to think about it and understand it and act upon it and choose to participate in it. And God's had plenty of time to test your mettle.
Mm-hmm. You put in the time, yeah.
Yeah, we put in the time in this case. Mm-hmm. And that's not true with the Towrah sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. 100% of those who are gathered around the Temple Mount missed the Towrah Lakat gleaning, which means none of them had accepted the benefits of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. None of them were covenant. And at the moment of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, they will be exactly one part of one day aware of Yahweh and that they shouldn't be religious and that this is God's plan.
And you worry about making it too easy.
Right. There is no chance whatsoever that God's going to say, sure, we'll just bring you all into heaven. We'll take all of your guilt away. You'll be perfected. And the result is Bakodim, where we're all one happy, empowered family. God's not crazy. That would be really stupid. He's not going to do that. What he's doing is all of the beneficiaries of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah get to go into the Garden of Eden on Sukkah for 1,000 years to earn God's trust.
You have to prove you must.
That's not a very long time when you're talking about eternity. God's going to give them, not only them, but there'll be generations that they will conceive. And so there'll be lots of people that have this opportunity to demonstrate that they can be trusted. And that's the whole purpose of this process, which means what I'm doing doesn't have anywhere near the overall benefit of what Dod did. So the bottom line message here is you want the golden ticket, capitalize on what Dod did. Don't wait around for what I'm going to do because it doesn't have near the benefit. I mean, at that time, it's as good as it's going to get. And it's going to work out really well for Dod and for those people. But the golden ticket is to make it out of here on Shabuah because you capitalized on what Dod has done in Pesach and Matzah. And, understand that what Dod did on Pesach was the doorway to life, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't save anybody. It provided eternal life, but it could be eternal life separated from God if you didn't capitalize on matzah. I'm just making a sacrifice just like Dod did. Well, from that point of view, fulfilling Towrah is just like fulfilling Pesach.
Sure.
Dod took it the next step. He took everyone's guilt into Sheol to deposit it there, never to be seen again. There is no, I'm taking it all away. It's just purged. You're cleansed. But there's no eternal distancing from every mistake you've ever made. You're given a fresh start. Mm-hmm. And that fresh start is as a mortal going into the garden. So this is also a profoundly important insight as to why no one's saved during that 7-year period. From Shabuah to Towrah. Now, on Towrah, there will be people who are genuinely saved. And there are people genuinely saved on Shabuah. But in between the two, no. You can earn God's protection so that you will be among those who make it through the Towrah harvest. But my guess is that all of those individuals who make it through the Towrah Lakat are going to have an opportunity to prove themselves. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a tough duty. And they're going to have a chance to show they've got what it takes to earn God's trust. Otherwise, they're going to be in the mortal remnant that goes into the garden. So, with death lurking around every corner and with his witnesses in the center of attention, Yahweh has promised to shield his witnesses in this case. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to do their job. But even beyond this, God is affirming that as the Nakar's body is mauled, so shall he live. In the fall of one, many will rise. And then in the manner of the Nakar, the beneficiaries will be adorned in the spirit in advance of Yahweh's return with Dod. So up to this point, Yahweh has referred to his co-worker as Tzedakah, as Enosh, as Ben Adam, as Hanakar, and as a Sharish, even as an Etz, which is a tree, the tree of knowledge, before acknowledging that he is Yada and that he is Eyel, which is the most prominent tree. He is Seif, and he is, which is a branch, and he is Salah, which is a sharp crag. And now just 5 statements from the conclusion of this narrative. At this point, he said that I'm enveloped in his Ruach, and God speaks of his engagement using me as the most endearing term that he is designated here. What he's using is my Nesama.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that makes us human. It's the thing that I have cherished more than any other. Is your Nesama is your seat of judgment, your ability to discern right from wrong. I mean, how can you write the tree of knowledge of good and evil without a Nesama?
Right.
Yeah, what God is saying, okay, you know, I'm doing this with your nefesh, but I'm going to mention this word that I use so infrequently, but is so descriptive of what makes this collaboration meaningful. Because you have a fully exercised Nesama. So he says, I'm working through the Nesama. I'm accomplishing this through the Nakar's Nesama, his conscience, his sense of right and wrong, of judgment, of morality, of fairness, of the very thing that the world is lacking today, good judgment. Now, I say this because our Nesama conscience is the most appealing aspect of our nature to Yahweh when we get it right. It is the part of us that is most like him. Capitalizing upon our Nesama, we prove our worth, that we can be trusted, that we can engage and do marvelous things in collaboration with our Father. These books were written, all of them, based upon the exercise of a Nesama. That is how we Yada Yahowah. We can do marvelous things in collaboration together when we exercise our Nesama to its fullest capacity. Our Nesama represents our ability to think rationally, judgmentally, morally, to be intelligent, to be discerning. It opens the floodgates of understanding. This is the part of us that is most like God, that he cherishes the most. And he says that I'm working through the Nesama of this Nakar. So given the option, I'd prefer by an infinite degree for Yahweh to choose to engage with my Nesama over my Bashar. I'll give him my Bashar. You can do whatever you want to with it, but take care of let's accomplish something worthwhile with my Nesama, because we're going to leave this world and endure forevermore with our Nefesh and our Nesama. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are disposable. E equals MC squared. You can take some of our energy and make a body anytime we want. And I'm going to make one better than the one I've got.
Me too.
Yeah, you too, huh, Kirk? Both of us can identify with that. And it is here that we relate and that we have formed our relationship together through our Nesama. So at this juncture, I think that this next statement on all of this should have been included in a new chapter. And in this transition, we find God has a good reason to be disappointed with his people, as well as the world at large. And to such an extent, he has actually precluded access to immortality during the time of Israel's troubles. It's a time of death, not of life. And after all, this is the reason that he will envelop the Nesama conscience that he is engaging through at this time with his Ruach spirit, making sure that it's protected and remains even in the midst of what is so antagonizing and embittered and rebellious all around him. I think God's presentation of this and how he has it, I know what I'm doing. You trust me, I'm going to make this work. And if you're capable of following along, you're going to find out exactly how I'm going to make this work. This is something that is a PhD level course in Towrahology that you don't have to understand to make it into the covenant family, but it's really helpful to know if you're supposed to be either acting as the Towrah or supporting the Towrah and trying to get this job done. So he's telling us something we can process. You don't need to understand it, but this is really sophisticated insight and understanding here.
Right.
So I think Yahowah is telescoping even this next statement, and I'll share it and we'll conclude this program because we're coming up now on 3 hours, that Yahowah is telescoping back in time to explain how Israel found itself in this horrible predicament. And he says, with the perversity and depravity associated with religious guilt of this covetous deception and immorality, this violence, this greed, this profiteering that severs everything, I will be provoked to anger, and I will lash out at him, concealing myself due to my displeasure. Nonetheless, he went backsliding and walking away in rebellion and continued to be rebellious, remaining untrustworthy by way of his own thinking and his personal judgment and inclinations. Yahowah delivers 57:17. And so God is explaining why there is no salvation during the time of troubles, that Israel doubles down on wrong. It's one of the great frustrations when we encounter people who use all manner of rational fallacies to try to discredit what we're saying on behalf of Yahowah in social media and our outreach to them, that they just double down on wrong. And it's like the fellow that I explained early in the show where he got ICE as I was making the correlation of the brown shirts and got it all screwed up with the SS and the Gestapo, and they're one but not the other. And do you have the character to say, "Oh yeah, I guess I was wrong. Thank you for sharing this. This is a valuable insight. I'm better off knowing this than I was just attacking you." And God saying to His people they're not going to get it. The Towrah gleaning is tiny.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gleaning. It's not a major harvest. It's going to be tiny. Not a lot of people are going to come to the covenant, even with, imagine the greatest orator in human history in terms of reaching out to his people and grabbing them where it matters and getting their attention. Elijah is going to have 3.5 years of this. And, at that time, I'm going to be infinitely more articulate and convincing than I am now. And I think I'm a decent orator on behalf of God's message now. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be, infinitely superior. And the two of us are going to go right after the religious and political establishment. And we're going to have God augmenting everything we do with a miraculous display all around us to convey this message. All manner of miracles. They're going to take place in this last 3.5 years. We have God's presence right there supporting us. And we're going to be supernatural individuals. And yet the religious will continue to be defiant. The political will continue to be defiant. Muslims will come and they will try to rape and plunder Jews, murder them in mass. And the Marxists will do the same. And so will the Christians. And so will all the devotees of Donald Trump who will have changed his residence to Jerusalem.
I don't think you can be more wrong than thinking Hasatan is your savior. I mean, I don't know that you can get more wrong than that.
To believe that God is promising that if you go off and kill a bunch of people for Him and rape and plunder and terrorize, that you're going to live in a garden filled with perpetual virgins. I mean, if you're stupid enough to believe that, you're not of interest to God.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe that God is approving of you stealing His Son's title and accolades and achievements and giving it to a pagan myth and turning him into a man that men can kill, and you think that is that's how we endure ourselves to God, and then you're out of your mind. and you've disqualified yourself because you're too stupid to figure this out. You're worshiping Satan as your Lord, and you weren't smart enough to figure it out. So there's a lot of that, and God says, I'm just fed up with it all, and I am not going to provide salvation for anyone during that 7-year period. That's the time of Israel's troubles. It's a time of death. It's a time of defiance. I'm going to send my witnesses. They're going to do everything they can to convince you. And as a result, there will be a gleaning on Towrah, and there will be a mortal remnant that is purged that enters the garden and has a new opportunity, a fresh start. That's as good as it's going to get. And so the advice is, listen up now.
Yeah.
Read. Go to yadayah.com. Take advantage of what's there and be part of the Shamuw'el harvest. And don't even think about claiming it as yourself, as yours, or try to exclude or censure God's message regarding it. This is why we got a 25-year head start on it, and have been devoted this last 25 years to bringing your attention to it. Capitalize on it. It's the ride of a lifetime, infinitely superior to going to Mars. Infinitely superior in every possible way. And so this is what God is offering us. And if you want to study the prophet Yeshaya, it is a PhD course in what God is offering and how to capitalize on it. And we're going to do our best to explain it to you in terms that you can understand, appreciate, and capitalize upon, without making it so easy that we dumb it down that people that don't belong capitalize on what we're saying. So in the end, it'll be as few as 1 in a million. Mm-hmm. That has always been the mark that God has set, 1 in a million, and that pleases him no end. Not looking for quantity, looking for quality, looking for people that are willing to be observant, willing to engage, and who can be trusted, who, not perfect, they make mistakes, but they learn from them, acknowledge them, and grow as a result, and who trip and fall, but get right back up and get going stronger and more confident than ever before, and prove that they can be trusted. It's interesting that God is looking for these things from us.
Yeah.
And it's also that he can trust us. You don't give the keys to your car to a misbehaving 13-year-old child who is belligerent, doesn't pay attention, doesn't listen, doesn't observe the world around them, doesn't pay attention, and never worked for anything in their life. And to give the keys to a car to someone like that would be stupid as a parent. God's not giving the keys to, and this is not just a jet airplane. This is a ticket to explore the universe. And God's not giving that to people that don't pay attention, that don't engage in work and make a contribution, and that can't be trusted. This is what we're all about. What a marvelous insight into what God's trying to achieve, and what a marvelous opportunity for us to demonstrate that we indeed can be that, and we can exemplify that. Dode did, and we're reflecting his brilliance.
Wow.
What do you think there, team? Captain Kirk, you made it through the end, and I know that you're looking forward to the Gamma Pitton, and so is my Asher girl. She's moaning here on the floor. She says, "Say yes to drugs. I need it too, And whoa, Asher. Oh my goodness. Asher just hung herself on my earphone wire. Didn't know why things fell all over her, but the lights fell and everything else. So here's an example of I drew attention to her, and she came because she's a loving girl, and got herself all tied up in the cables. And here's Wookie saying, "Oh my God, Dad, I had a really good nap. Are we done yet?" It's tough being a co-host.
So You and Leah and Rich. I mean, without it, we don't get to do this. So, God, thank you.
Yeah, man.
You're welcome.
It's,
Part of the job.
Yeah, it's a wonderful job. We're lucky to have it, and thank you, Rich, for bringing us all together and making this work so seamlessly and effortlessly, so we could just focus on sharing the message.
We're on the road to Shamuw'el.
We're on the road to Shamuw'el, clearing the obstacles as we go, and sharing Yahweh's wonderful testimony.
Craig, what you just revealed, it was resonating with me. I didn't want to say it because of the cultural baggage that's associated with it, but this is Yah's really ultimate solution to the Jewish final solution. This is it in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Well, I use that term knowing it's a loaded term, that there's probably no title that would cause more consternation amongst Jews than when I say this is Yahweh's answer to his Jewish problem, because I know that is the terms that the Nazis used to excuse the Holocaust. But you have to understand that Yahweh has endured a Jewish problem for 3,400 years.
You're right on target. I felt it. I was saying the same thing before you said it, and it was like, it makes sense to me, and I understand it.
Yeah. What Yahweh needs is for Jews to stop being Jews and to become Yehudim again.
Huh.
He needs them to stop referring to him as Hashem and come to know him as Yahweh. They need to stop pretending there's an unknown Messiah that's going to save them, and recognize that Dod is that Messiah, that he is the Son of God, that he is our Savior. They need to stop with the religious holidays and celebrate Chag Matzah as it was intended. They need to recognize that God hates religion and that the covenant is a family relationship, and shed their religiosity and come back home.
Absolutely.
And there's very little time to get this done now. The Shavuot harvest could be as few as 120 days from now, or it could be a year from now. It's going to be either on the Shavuot and the Shabbat of May 22nd, 2026, or the Shabbat and Shavuot of 11 June 2027. And there's so much going on this Shavuot that it can be fulfilled at both of those times, with different aspects of it, beginning with the time of trouble beginning indeed on 22 May, of 2026, less than 5 months from now, about 4 months from now at this point. And then have the harvest on the Shavuot of 11 June 2027. I don't really want to know which one of these events happens in each of them, because I'm pretty sure that the Shavuot a little over a year from now is the one where Alaska Flood 2.0 is going to transpire. And it's going to be devastating for Israel. And I know that the time of trouble begins with this coming Shavuot on 22 May of 2026. The harvest could occur on either one of those times. We're better off if it's the latter of the times. It gives us more time. But it's going to occur on one of those two times.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't speak for all Yehudim, and I discussed this with Leah. We should be grateful and thankful and appreciative for the gift that's being offered.
Yeah.
Not the opposite.
God is offering his beloved son as the gift. That's Dod. He's offering eternal life. He's offering to acquit us of all of our misdeeds, so that we appear not guilty before him, and we can relax and enjoy being in his presence, being exposed to him. And he's offering to enrich and empower us to an extent beyond our imagination, as we go from 3 dimensions to 4, 5, 6, and to 7, and go off and explore this universe. See, the riches are beyond human capacity to fathom. And he's offering all this to us, and all he asks in return is that we accept the terms and conditions of his covenant and meet with him 7 times a year as we fulfill these Moedim, that we acknowledge him by name, and that we accept what he has achieved through his beloved Son in the fulfillment of these promises. David.
You were saying it 25 years ago. You must trust and rely on him.
Correct.
You must trust and
No room
rely
for
on him.
no room for faith, no room for belief. To trust and rely means you must know and understand. That's the only way you can trust and rely.
Absolutely.
And so God has given us plenty of information for us to base our decision in fact. There's no reason to believe. You can know. No reason for faith because you can understand. And then you can demonstrate your conviction by not only shedding your ignorance and replacing it with knowledge and going beyond knowledge by making the proper connections to understand, but then sharing what you've learned with others so that you've enhanced the covenant family forevermore.
Absolutely.
This is our opportunity. This is your opportunity. It's time to act. You have very little time remaining. It's been a wonderful 3 hours. 3 hours and 5 minutes at this point. It's a long time to sit in the chair, gentlemen, and to participate in this. And my friend Kevin at the top, and Sylvia's lovely picture. You've devoted more than 5 hours of your day just to the Yahowah vlog, in addition to everything else you do. And Kirk, under the circumstances, to see your big smile with all that you're going through to get your body healed, it's an inspiration to all of us. We love you. We respect you. You're one of the greatest men I've ever known. And Dr. Jeff, what a huge improvement our messages and these family hours are with you participating. You represent Yehudim brilliantly. You're articulate. You've got great knowledge. You have the thing that's missing from so many. You have a deep passion for your people and conviction in what you know. And we've had a almost 24-year relationship. We go back a long, long time together. Yeah. We've come a long way.
Yes. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.
And
we couldn't get this done, by the way, without Rich. We are totally dependent upon him. I like being dependent on him because I love him. I trust him. He has just like if a man had a perfect personality to fit into our family and get this done in our home as and delivering this program, Rich is like, if God designed, I'm going to give you the perfect personality to get this done. Right. His skill sets, his attitude, his aptitude, his knowledge, his passion for Yahowah. Says, I've got the perfect guy. It's like it says, okay, I'm going to send part of me down there to get this done for you, and that's Rich. Yeah. So we really have it's a marvelous inner core of people, and fortunately we do, and we all get along because we're going to be working together for the next 1,000 years. So
the Covenant family is awesome, and the Covenant family rocks.
It does. It absolutely rocks. We are absolutely what Yahowah describes as a rock of salvation, and through whom he is all in. He's pleased with what we're achieving together, and it's amazing that he is the enabler of all of it, and yet he takes credit for very little of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I just throw in one quick thing? Your shows with Kevin on the news are just great. I
love the vlog on the blog. It's such a fun idea. It takes us back, of course, to 1,000 times better than the Shattering Myths days. The old radio days with Shattering Myths, where I'd read a section of a news story and then comment on it. And now we have the blog and the two of us going at it, and the visuals. Oh, what a huge opportunity this is to cover the news. And today we got to cover such important information. It's my favorite is to do those programs. So I hope it is useful for others. Yeah. Well, good night, everyone. It's Shabbat Shalom. Look
Right.
forward to talking with you again in a few days. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Shabbat shalom.
Out on the road to Shamuw'el.